took a lot of losses. I'm just trying to shake back. My life was flooded with water without a boat or powder. Fighting addiction, pain. The street life game, depression, man. Here we go again. I had to stand on my own too. The game don't owe you. Haters, they try to fool you. It ain't nothing they can show you. So what the hell you gonna do? Like a diamond in the rough, I pressured up. Man, enough is enough. Pressure bust pipes, I'm about to explode. See, knowledge is key to get me where I'm trying to go. I got sick and tired of running them streets. I know the better way for me to feed my peace. I couldn't raise my kids like the streets raised me. So I changed my route so they can really see that this is the best of me. And cooking up success is the recipe. You're the best of me.
You gotta stay focused, you gotta maintain. You gotta stay focused, you gotta maintain. You gotta stay focused, you gotta maintain. That shit come with the game. Through all these losses, you gotta stay focused, you gotta maintain. You gotta stay focused, you gotta maintain. You gotta stay focused, you gotta maintain. That shit come with the game.
Yo, welcome to the Welcome Legacy Podcast, where real hustlers, dreamers, and builders come to grow. I'm your host, James G. Welcome, former street hustler turned entrepreneur, CDL driver, real estate broker, associate, author, music artist, and father of 12. I've been to prison, I battled addictions, I started from zero multiple times, but I built my business, Welcome Legacy Maintenance, from the ground up with my kids by my side. I've dropped books, I've dropped music, and now I'm dropping gems. This podcast is about transformation, legacy, and leadership for the culture, for the streets, and for the future. So if y'all are ready to build something that lasts, tune in, lock in, and let's grow. Let's get it. I was welcome back with another amazing episode of the Welcome Legacy Podcast, episode 10. Today's guest is Antron. Grew up with a structured and disciplined foster care upbringing in a Maddads home alongside my previous guest, Jamal. While the streets were all around, Antron stayed focused, excelled in sports, and went on to college. His dedication led him to major opportunities, including being featured on the Dr. Pepper can. Today, he works to empower communities that have experienced trauma, helping them gain access to funding, mentorship, and hope. This conversation is about discipline, opportunity, and using your life to inspire others. Quote of the day: structure builds success, and discipline keeps it. Follow the Welcome Legacy Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and share this episode to inspire someone to stay disciplined and focused no matter their environment. Antron, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, man. Good morning, man. Just happy to be here. Happy to be on the show. Thanks for inviting me on. Just looking forward to this conversation and catching up. I know it's been a while since you and I linked, so just excited to get on here, answer some questions, and just chop it up a little bit.
Yes, sir. And I really appreciate you making time and getting on this thing with me. Okay. This interview is based in sections. We have 6 sections. Section number 1 is early life and foster care. Question number 1.
Okay.
Where were you born, and what do you remember most about your earliest years before foster care?
All right. So originally, I'm actually from Georgia. Born there, but was raised in the state of Florida. So I grew up in Florida my entire life. Interesting enough, I actually had this conversation with one of my friends yesterday, not even realizing this question was going to be on here. And we are just talking about me growing up in the foster care system. And one of the questions that they actually asked me was, how much do I remember actually before foster care? And I told him, I said, honestly, I don't remember anything. What I remember is being in pre-K, being in foster care, then anything prior to that age of pre-K, I don't remember anything at all. I remember, growing up, going to multiple elementary schools throughout Lake County here in the state of Florida. But anything prior to pre-K, like I just have no recollection, no memory of it. But I think part of that is also because I don't have no pictures. I don't have no videos that, show what I did as a little kid, where I was at, anything like that. So as far as I can remember was actually being in pre-K, and the furthest memory that I can remember back is being in pre-K at a church. And I was actually supposed to say the Lord's Prayer. I learned the Lord's Prayer at an early age. Yeah. And I was supposed to say it, and I end up getting sick. And so I wasn't able to say the Lord's Prayer. And I was just so mad. I was just so upset with that. And that right there is the furthest memory back that I can remember as far as being a child and being in the foster care system, child welfare system.
So basically, you were born in Georgia, and most of your memories are in foster care. Mm-hmm. Don't remember nothing because at pre-K, you like what, 4 years old?
None of that.
4 or 5?
I mean, growing up in the system, that really is it. And I don't think that I've, buried those memories or anything like that. I mean, maybe even if I had pictures or videos, maybe I can somewhat remember something. I think maybe even further back than being in pre-K, I remember being in some home with my biological family, and I remember my hand getting closed in the door, in a car door. But outside of that, just memories of things that we did. I take that back. I can remember with my brother's dad being on the road with them because he was a truck driver. And so, me as a kid growing up, my favorite candy was a Snickers. My brother's was a Butterfinger. So I do remember that. But as far as any other details, any other memories prior to that, like that literally is the only one. So being on the road, because my brother's dad was a truck driver, and get my hand slammed in the car door. Outside of that, the only memories are foster care and moving forward.
Yeah, that's great. I wouldn't remember getting your hand bammed up.
I remember screaming pretty loud to that. I remember screaming pretty loud. Yeah. So that was probably a pretty traumatic event that I had back then, and that's probably why I can remember it so easily.
Yeah. Anytime we got traumatic, it's like me and Young out there riding a bicycle with no shoes on, and you skint your big toe. Yeah. With a rough moment there too, boy. Hey, you gonna cry all the way to the hive.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So you don't have no memory, basically. So your whole life you was in foster system.
Yeah, my memory as a kid growing up literally is foster care. So those two memories, the one hand getting slammed in the car door and being on the road in a semi with my brother and his dad, going back and forth from Georgia to Florida.
Yeah. That's rough. Well, question number 2. So you actually entered foster care younger than the age of 10. Mm-hmm. So it was like what, about 5?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, whatever age it would be for for pre-K. Yeah, so probably about 4 or 5, somewhere around there.
So second question that touches on that. So it's you enter foster care around 5. Mm-hmm. What was that transition like for you?
Man, I think back then that transition into foster care is like, you don't really know what it is. You just know that as a kid that you're being taken away from the only family that you've ever known, right? And so these people who you end up moving with, you thinking that, maybe they're family friends, you just don't know who it is. And then once I got older and I was kind of told the story of why I actually got placed into the foster care system. So in my biological family, it's 4 of us. I have an older brother, I have a sister, I have another brother, and then I'm actually the baby. And so my brother that's closer to me in age, about a year and a half older than me, he, the way that they tell the story is that, This was I'm the end of the 80s, baby. I'm 4/8/88, right? That synchronicity 888, and so for me in the the 80s, that was a bad era for drugs and stuff like that. Biological mom, she was on drugs pretty bad, and my older brother was telling her, hey, you need to go get help. And so she went to go get help. She left us with one of our aunties, and there's three sides to every story, but apparently the auntie ended up calling DCF. Back then it was actually called HRS, but they ended up calling DCF and basically said there was abuse and neglect, and that's when the people came and picked us up. But it was only my brother and I that was really the one that's closer to me that was really in the foster care system, because my older brother, he was getting ready to turn 18, so he didn't really spend no time in child welfare, and then he was able to actually get my sister. She didn't spend much time in the foster care system anyway, so him and I, we grew up in foster care together, got adopted, end up having a failed adoption, and end up getting placed back into the foster care system. And so, just that whole initial transition, again, you meeting all different people, you think they're just family friends. During that time, we was able to see our biological mom at the HRS building, being able to have visitation and stuff with her during that time. But again, we still didn't really know what was going on. It was just like, okay, we're just taken away from a little bit while our mom is, doing what she needs to do in order to get us back. And so we didn't really realize the full transition until the summer going into third grade. And that summer going into third grade, we were already visiting with a family from Ocala, and they would pick us up like on the weekend. We'd go to church with them and stuff, and then they would bring us back. We didn't know we didn't even understand what was going on during the time. We just thinking this is another foster family who's going to, eventually end up taking us in, but it was actually for adoption. And so we ended up going to the courthouse one day during the summer, and they took us into rooms individually and asked us, did we want to be adopted, and a few other questions. I don't remember all of the questions. I just remember the ones like, do you want to get adopted by this family? I'm a kid, what I'm saying? Still don't fully understand what's going on, but like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess. And so end up getting adopted right before the summer going into third grade.
Yeah.
And then stayed with that adopted family up until fifth grade. So really it was a year and a half. Well, 2 full years, excuse me. All of third grade, half of fourth grade, and then half of fifth grade. There were some allegations that came up in fourth grade where they didn't have enough proof, so they placed us back into the adopted home. And then in fifth grade, allegations came up again. And when those allegations came up again, there was enough proof. And so that's when my brother and I, we were the number 10 and the 11th child that were adopted. And so when those allegations ended up coming up and they had more proof of it, then they took us all out of the all out of that adopted home. And that's when we got placed back into foster care, my second half of fifth grade. And that's basically kind of like when I really understood fully and knew what was going on moving forward, going through up to my senior year of high school.
So basically, it was shaky because you didn't know what was going on. You thought you was going with some family members or something, and you was actually just moving around them houses, and they was trying to find y'all a home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, and so with the biological family too, unfortunately, and again, a lot of this stuff I learned after the fact. So like after I actually aged out of the system at 12, 18, after my senior year of high school, because I actually went to go work for a child welfare agency. And when I got my file and I'm going through and I'm reading through the file, I found out a lot more stuff after the fact. And so at that point, when we were getting adopted, we didn't know, like I said, we didn't know, we're just looking at it as another, family taking care of us, really. But yeah, at that point, my biological mom, all of her rights were terminated. So they weren't going to get us back at that time. And so there was no contact for them to even be able to, really reach out and have conversations with us and, check on us to see how we're doing or anything like that. So yeah, unfortunately,
Just like lost.
None of the other biological family, really reached out to, try to get us. And so just foster care adoption and then foster care again.
Yeah. But
So
that's,
my last name actually, original last name is Patrick before being adopted, and it changed to McCullough. Because I have a lot of people, they'll ask me, well, why won't you change it back? And I'm just like, everything that I've done, everything I've accomplished at this point, it's what is the need?
change it back.
Right. It's just like, it's like I understand, changing it back and, with having that last name as McCullough, and the allegations and things that actually came up, they're kind of getting that sense of accomplishment off the things that I've done. But I don't look at that, in that way. I just look at it that, I've accomplished so much where I'm at now that changing back the last name just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah, that make a lot of sense to me. Because, like dealing with a lot of family members. And back then, the 80s, because I'm an 80s baby, I'm an 87 baby. So down that years was hell, like with the crack epidemic. It was like everybody was doing it. And it tore up so many households. It took a lot of family members away. My dad was really, really bad on it. And it's like growing up down there where we was, that's really all what really flowed through there.
Yeah.
And it was just a hell of a time, man. Hell of a time. But let's get to this. Maddads foster home are known for being strict. How did that structure influence your habits and mindset?
So I'll say this. I don't know if like all Maddads who are part of that organization, I don't know if their homes are strict. I can't say that because I don't know, I know some of the individuals, some of the men who were a part of that organization. But what I will say is that growing up in that foster home, so I actually call them mom and dad today, my foster parents. I call them mom and dad today. This is really so I always make a distinction between adopted family, mom and dad, which is foster family, and bio family. You'll hear me make that distinction throughout when I'm describing individuals. But what I will say with them was for what they saw growing up during their time, they wanted young boys, they wanted young men to be more than the status of drugs and being in and out of jail and potentially being shot and killed, right, or committing some type of crime. And so they wanted more for those individuals. They wanted more for the community. And so that structured home, although growing up, as you get older, you see a lot of things and you're like, yeah, I understand it better now, right? I realize what they done for me was for my best interest. But as a kid, you don't see that. It's like, why can't I go down the road and go play with my friends? And like, oh, you don't need to hang around those people. Well, why? You don't understand it. And so I think, really having that discipline, really having that structure, like you don't understand it. You don't understand it fully as a kid. You just look at it as, oh, y'all being mean. Y'all don't want me to be, around my friends, or y'all don't want me to hang out. Where with the child welfare system, there's also things that are put in place where you can't just go hang out with certain people, right? So even their family next door, who they've known their entire life, if we wanted to go and stay the night, anyone who's in that home who's 18 or above, every single one of them have to have a background check. Every single one of them have to have fingerprints. Now, again, I didn't learn this stuff until engaged out in the system, reading through files and working for the child welfare system. And then you start to learn these kind of things. You're like, oh, okay, it makes a little bit more sense now. But, there was just certain things that really we couldn't do, unfortunately. So, as far as in going down the road, playing with our friends, it was more of a protection thing. Because if we went down the road and we got hurt, and they're not there physically to protect us or to watch us, or we get in some trouble or something like that, then it actually falls back on them as foster parents. And so it was a strict household, but like I say, it really helped me to become the person that I am and being able to understand that, these are safeguards, that are put into place. This isn't, something that they're doing to keep us from being able to have fun or being able to have some type of normalcy as a kid who's growing up.
Yeah. So basically, all they were doing was going by the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were making sure that they followed the steps that they needed to do and kept y'all away from the negative influence to try to influence y'all as positive as possible to groom y'all into successful men.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there were some things that we weren't fond of, like, it's having to tuck shirts in, you know what I'm saying, to go to school. It's just like, hated doing stuff like that. And of course, as soon as you get down the road or whatever, you
Don't
untuck it
pull it
and
out.
then keep walking to the bus stop. But everybody in the community knew, like, y'all better get them shirts tucked in before y'all get back up there to their house. But we don't got to tuck our shirts in, But there were certain things we were just like, all right, man, this is too much. This is overboard. But the majority of the big stuff, yeah, that's them following those rules, those policies that foster care puts in place. In order to, safeguard us as individuals. I mean, because I think during that time, during the 90s, early 2000s, you had a lot of kids who went missing from the system, and their caseworkers hadn't checked on them, for 6 months up to a year. And the foster families didn't have those kids anymore. And it was just like, okay, well, what happened to the kid? Like, they were in your custody, and if the caseworker were checking on them monthly, like they should have been doing, then they would know where the kids were at. And so, a lot of the child welfare system, it changed during that time, where there's a lot of heavy policies that were really put in place to kind of protect the youth in the system as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's a lot of stuff goes on in that too, especially because some people seem like they be the nicest person in the world, but behind them closed doors, they be in there tearing them kids up and just treating them like a piece of crap, just so they can get money out of them, or whatever else that the state give them. And but
And I've kind of seen that happen. My parents, they weren't like that. You can truly and honestly see that they wanted to help the young men become better. But I have seen or heard where individuals are doing it just for an extra paycheck. And again, the child welfare system, they try to put, policies in place to kind of help protect that. So that's why parents have to go through, like year-long trainings to be foster parents. That's why they actually encourage them, like, hey, you're going to actually need a job, because this check that you're actually receiving from the government, from the state, yes, it's to help the youth, like, to help the household, for food, for clothing, for getting them, putting some gas in your car to get you so you can get them to and from the appointment. So, for the individuals who look at it as just a paycheck, and I have some, friends who grew up in the foster care system, where they talk about it, it's very difficult. It's a challenge, because you've already been facing abuse or neglect, and you end up leaving your biological family for one reason, and then you end up into this foster home, and you're thinking that, okay, well, they're going to do better by me, and a lot of circumstances, it actually ends up being worse.
yeah, it do. And that there, just by being like that, especially if you leave our environment and you think you're going into a better environment, and then you end up in the same environment that you left from, that plays a lot of torment on your role in your mind and your self-worth, and like it deals a lot of torment, depression, all type of stuff with inside yourself. Because I know, like, I was watching a movie. Me and my kids watching a movie, and it was about a couple. They already had kids, and they was interested in adopting the kids. Like, the lady had got a calling, and they was pastored.
Mm-hmm.
And well, the husband was a pastor, and she, since she was following behind First Lady, what we used to call her. And they adopted some little ones. It was like some young kids, and it was an older girl. But the older girl, like, her mom was like terrible. Like, she would let the older guys like rape her, all type of stuff, and it tormented her to the way that she didn't want to speak. So, like, when she started feeling a certain type of way, like being pushed away, or she started acting like a cat, and but that was her friend. Like growing up, she had a cat as a friend, so she started acting like the cat, and it like the whole movie, like it was weird. But we started realizing like she was trying to kind of like change herself into a different person, right? Trying to change herself into a different person. Hopefully that don't nobody see her, because that when she turned into that, she's invisible to the people. And I was like, damn, like I wonder how many other people that goes through those same trauma, and then you try to make yourself something that you're not, to try to like be invisible to the other people. And it's like, damn, like that really mess your mind up, especially if you get stuck. Because she was like 15 years old and she been doing it the whole time. So she was in and out the system for like 10 years and couldn't nobody deal with her. They was like, I don't know what's wrong with her. Like she just don't talk and then start acting like a cat. Like I can't deal with it. She was literally crawling on all fours on the ground, and it was just crazy, man. It was crazy.
You have to send me a link to that. So in my situation, somewhat similar. So like I said, my brother and I, we were the 10th and the 11th child that were adopted. However, we were only 9 and 10 in the home, because the oldest of the adopted kids, when we got adopted, she was off in the military, and dad was a pastor. And so, like I said, all the 3rd grade, we lived with them. In 4th grade, there were some sexual allegations that came up. Wasn't enough proof, so they placed us back into the home. 5th grade, same accusations came up. And this time, the oldest adopted daughter basically kind of came down and was like, this situation, like, what the other individuals are saying is true. This isn't his granddaughter. This is daughter. And then that's when like everything kind of hit the fan, and everybody was like, okay, like, and at that time too, again, and this was, and some of this stuff, again, I didn't learn until reading my file after I actually aged out of the system. But it's like, at a young age like that, when you grew up in a church, because the adopted dad was a pastor, and I'm talking about, we were in church 6 days a week. I kid you not. Mondays was for the men, for the boys. Tuesdays for the girls, for the ladies. Wednesday Bible study. Thursday prayer night. Friday watch night service, where you go out on the lawn and you bring the instruments out. And so anybody who's driving by, they can go sit in the parking lot and, hear the church service. Saturday, clean up and choir rehearsal. And then Sunday, you got Sunday school, you got regular church service, and then you have evening service. So when I say that, we were in church 6 days a week, we were literally in church all the time. And so as a kid, when you hear about these things, you find out what they mean later on in life, and you grew up in the church, your faith starts to dwindle, and then, you kind of, look at why me, like why were, we placed into this situation, why not someone else? And so, you kind of lose a little bit faith, lose a little bit hope, and you try to mask that what you're going through, and you try to put that energy towards something else, with your feelings and the difficulties and the challenges that you're facing. So what you're talking about with that movie, I can definitely understand, her masking herself and wanting to act like a cat to try to remove herself as a person from that situation, to seem invisible, to hopefully stop the trauma that was going on in her life.
Yeah, but God give the toughest soldiers the toughest battle.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
All of us go through certain things in our life to make us more mentally strong, physically strong, because the purpose of our life is way more fulfilling. So we have to go through it. Kind of like Job, kind of like Moses, Abraham, all of them in the Bible. All of them had to go through certain phases of their life to make them into the person that they is today. But as being a kid, we don't really see it like that.
Yeah.
We see like, why me? Why me? Why me? And then when you get older and you've been through so much and you still out here striving, you're like, why not me? I'm built for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna get through it, no matter what it takes or whatever I have to do. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's hit where we at? Where's that number 4? Growing up in a disciplined environment, what values stuck with you most?
I think that the two values that really stuck with me the most were hard work and education. So my dad, my foster dad, I honestly, I do not know any man who works harder than him, at anything. Like, this is the hardest working man that I've ever seen. So much to the fact that he's been retired almost 2 decades at this point. Both of my foster parents, they've been retired almost 2 decades at this point, and he still wakes up at the same time every morning, go makes his coffee. It's so hard to even, buy gifts for him for Father's Day or for his birthday or even for Christmas, because it's like you don't want to purchase something for him that's going to make him work.
Yeah.
So it's really a challenge, with that. But man, he's just such a hard worker, and on any and everything you do, put your all into it. I remember one of my first jobs in high school. I was working at Wendy's, and I remember working at that job in I worked the graveyard shift, so 11 at night till 7 in the morning. And I just remember, I didn't think I was working hard. I mean, I was just doing my job is the way that I saw it. But I remember the manager coming in is like, man, like, take a break, man, take a break. Like, man, you're working so hard. And you don't realize, well, that was instilled in me at an early age. You feel like, well, it's just me doing work, but I'm sitting here, I'm scrubbing the grill, I'm emptying out the grease, I'm sweeping, I'm mopping, I'm wiping down everything. And I'm just looking at it like, hey, this is my job. This is what I'm here for. And so I would say that, just putting your all into everything that you do and being a hard worker, that was number one. And then second thing was education. And that's because my mom, she was in the education system for 35 and a half years before she retired. And so it was, education will get you to where you want to be, but hard work will allow you to sustain where you want to be. And so it's really those two key principles, those two values that I learned growing up and that I, continue to, keep in individuals who I'm working with, from, clients to students, et cetera, just really instilling in them that you receive. So we're working in the college setting, the university setting, working with students, it's always the professor's fault. Like, they gave me this grade. It's like, no, they didn't give you the grade. You earned the grade. Take some responsibility, take some accountability on yourself. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to instill principles and values in you to get you from point A to point B so you can be successful. So you're putting that accountability back on them. And again, I'm kind of finding that I'm instilling some of those same values of hard work and education with the individuals who I've been working with. So I would say those are the top two values that I grew up with.
Yeah, hard work and education. Those two together make you a hell of a person. 'Cause every day we learn, and with the right stuff instilled in us at a young age, and we get into it and don't look back, ain't no telling how far you can really go in your life with just those two. A little bit of discipline.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a little bit of discipline, hard work, and education. Because as long as you're learning, you're earning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oldest number, man, like, me and him growing up, we didn't have the best of relationships.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of people in the community. You're so strict, so hard on us that it, kind of branched out to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we ain't had the best relationship, but as I got older, like, I know, like, because I was a troubled kid growing up. So I kind of felt to understand that we was teaching y'all structure. We didn't really have no structure.
Mm-hmm.
I just put on that back to school fun day for the kids last weekend, and him and Mary Jane was basically the first ones that was there. You know what I mean? So,
And that go back to what I was saying earlier, that with him and that hard work and wherever it is, he'll get to it. He'll get to it, the
yeah,
first person that's there. And so I know within our community, everybody knows him. And, like I said, I know some people that he may have kind of brushed the wrong way with, how, strict he was and how that came off to other individuals. But like I said, I think as we get older, we kind of look back and we can see like,
we
okay,
understand.
this is what, what he was actually trying to do,
Trying to do.
within the community to uplift everyone in the community, but especially the young men.
And he wanted to keep the crime out of the community because he was a patrol. So
Yeah.
you really understand that. And like I felt when I started going through my phase of my life of me trying to get out of the streets and all that stuff there, and when I wrote and I published my book and all that stuff, they bought a copy of my book, and like he was like, man, you don't know how proud I am of you and changing, and that really meant a lot to me. Saying from all the stuff I done been through, and then I'm looking at him, and usually he'd kick me out the house. Like, you can't be up here. From going that to shake my hand, and then like, man, you're being an inspiration. So that really
Absolutely.
meant a lot. Here we go. Let's hit number 5. How did you and Jamal's experience compare, even though y'all were in the same system?
Ooh, that's a good question. So our situation is different because Jamal still had family around. In fact, Ms. Mary, she actually taught his mom. And so she already knew all of his family, and a lot of his family. She worked with his grandma.
Yeah.
So his family was still kind of, always around and in the area. And like I said, my family scattered throughout the state of Florida, Lake County, but a lot of them was also in Georgia. But when my biological mom lost all of her rights, essentially the contact was cut off. They couldn't get in contact with us. They, couldn't have conversations where with him, his mom was still going through the process to try to get them back. And so, they were still keeping in contact. He was still able to have visitation rights, was still able to, buy him stuff and, reach out to him. And so our situations, although we went through, we lived in the same home, his is a little bit different is because he still had individuals. He still had that support from outside family members. Remember me, I was adopted. So once the biological family, all of that communication was cut off, I'm adopted now. Right. But now I'm not in the adopted family no more because I'm placed back into foster care. And so now that's sorry about that. There's 2 families removed now at this point. And so you really don't have anyone there to really support you other than the individuals who are around you on a daily basis. But, even with that, our situations, I think that everyone has to take their own journey. Everyone has their own path. Everyone has their own journey. And so his path isn't my path. One of the things that I remember about him and I is growing up in the foster care system, there's this thing called respite. So when the foster family can't take you somewhere and you go into another foster family's home for, maybe overnight or the weekend or a couple of days until, they're able to come back. So like, let's say that the foster family is going to a funeral and they can't take all the foster kids. So you're going to respite. And so, growing up as a kid, they always ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up and this and that? And, people want to be doctors and lawyers, etc. Well, the respite family that we went to just so happened to be some of our friends. And when we were there, I remember that dad, he had adopted his kids as well. Like he was a pastor. And we went over to that family, we're outside, inside, video games, playing outside basketball and stuff all day. And it was on a Wednesday, and we didn't go to Bible study that Wednesday because that pastor's wife was sick and in the hospital. And so he was like going back and forth visiting her all day, but he did want to still have, like a little mini Bible study with us that night. And so he came out and told us to come in, like get cleaned up, and he read a scripture. He talked about it, and then he prayed. And then, we all went back outside doing our thing, but I don't know what spoke to him, but something made him come back out to us playing outside. And he just looked at me and he asked me, he said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" "I want to play sports. I want to be a football player." As a kid, I used to write down my yardage. I still have that folder somewhere, that spiral notebook. I used to write down, how many yards I made, how many catches I had, how many touchdowns I had made, how many tackles, etc. And it was always football, just love sports. And so, I remember during that conversation, he was just like, "Oh, okay," and just left it at that. I didn't think anything of it. Well, later on that night when we were all in the house, he came back out and he asked me, he said, "Do you know why I asked you that question?" And I said, "No." I said, "Why?" He said, "When you grow up, he said, when I was praying over you earlier, he said, God showed me a vision and said, you're going to be a great ball player." Ball player being the key word. Oh man, you hear that as a kid. That's exciting. And so Jamal being there with me, he said, "I want to play football too." The pastor said, he said, "God didn't show me that vision for you. God showed me a vision for you being in law enforcement." Right. And so as him and I, we got older, I'm like, man, like I'm playing sports, etc. But never played in regard to like as on a professional level or anything like that. But I remember just getting so mad and so upset. And so this correlation goes back to what I was talking about earlier with, having faith in God and why me, why am I going through this situation? And I'm like, this pastor told me I was going to be a great, and so I remember talking to one of my mentors and I was telling her about it. And I said, he told me I was going to be a great ball, because she asked me exactly what he said. I said, he told me I was going to be a great ball player one day. And she said, "Did you hear what you just said?" I said, "Yeah, he told me I was going to be a great ball player." She said, "Did he say football?" "No." "Basketball?" "No." She said, "Okay." She said, "A great ball player." She said, "A ball player can be someone that's, at the top of a Fortune 500 company. A ball player can be someone within a community that's just, a top person that makes influence. A ball player can be a person that people look up to for XYZ reasons." And when I looked at it from that standpoint, I was just like, wow, I was like, I never thought about that. You hear ball player as a kid, because he never said football, basketball, but you hear ball player as a kid and it's like, it's like that makes more sense now. And so I remember going back to Jamal and I said, "Do you remember that conversation? He said you were going to end up in law enforcement, and look where he's at today." So,
Yeah.
It was kind of, cool to see how things kind of like really came around full circle with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jamal doing his thing with it.
Mm-hmm.
That boy love them cars.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was always into cars as a kid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He love them cars. All right, let's hit this segment 2. Choosing a different path.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't entertain the street life. What was that, a conscious decision or just who you were raised to be?
I think it was both. It was definitely a conscious decision, but for me, one of the things that I was quoted saying when I aged out of the foster care system was that I didn't want to use the excuse as the man for holding me back or holding me down from being able to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. Mm-hmm. I knew about the street life. I didn't want to grow up, dead or in jail or, anything like that. And so when I really sat back and thought about it, I'm like, what is the reason for it? Like your friends who you were around, like even now, with individuals who, are like, don't snitch and stuff like that. It's just like, they're not the ones who's reaching out to you while you're doing that time. You know what I mean? Like if you get shot and killed, like, sure, you know what I'm saying? They gonna celebrate you in your home going, but then you're gone. You've left this earth. Maybe they'll like, are they taking care of your family? Are they taking care of your kids if you have that? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what is the reason for, doing that? Like I know, some reasons are to, quick money, fast money, to help individuals come up. And, it's once you're in, it's easy to say that, you're gonna, you want to get out of it once you reach a certain point. But I think just for me, for that conscious decision, it was always get your education, because wherever you want to go, wherever you want to end up, that's really going to be what your career path is moving forward. And so, yeah, I just really made that conscious decision that is not even worth it. Was I around it? Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm not going to lie and say that I was a saint. I've had individuals who've, handed me drugs because, during security checks and stuff like that, people, teachers, whatever, they're going to look at me and you're like, oh, Antron, go ahead to class. They're not going to check me. You know what I'm saying? I'm a straight A student, So, and maybe I, hold it for them until the end of the day or something like that, or until I see them, later on. So, I'm not going to say I'm a saint, but as far as, really getting into that street life, made a conscious decision not to, but I also think there was no peer pressure for me to do it because my peers, they knew who I was and my peers kept me out of it. So they were just like, yeah, like don't involve Tron with that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, everyone grew up in the same situation, but they know that one person out of all of us that can make it out, that can make a difference, that can really become something. So they were just like, don't even have that around him. You know what I'm saying? Like he on the straight and narrow. So, yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that it sets you back. You get charges. Everybody start looking at you different.
Yeah.
You try to go to work after all these years or whatever else you're doing. Because when I went to prison, I came home and I tried my hardest. Like I got my diploma in there and tile setting, and I told myself that I didn't want to go back in the streets. And as soon as I came home, it's like everybody was like, "Here you go, man. Get right back in the same position that you was in." Like it was there, but something in my mind was like, "Nah, man, I don't really want that life no more." And so I'm gonna try this out, and try to do the right thing. So I walked to jobs. I went to the library, filling out applications, and I'm calling jobs, and everybody kept saying the same thing. They kept saying, "You're overqualified. You're overqualified." I'm like, how the hell am I overqualified? I worked restaurant jobs, Boston Market. I don't did production. I don't did lawn care. I don't did concrete. And everybody was saying the same thing. But they looking at my record. Oh, you got drug charges and all this and that. So they was looking at me as a risk.
Yeah.
And certain charges that certain people have, you're even more of a risk, and they don't really want to get you, especially when you got gun charges. Got armed robbery or stuff like that you really gotta figure something else out, especially when you're underage.
Yeah.
So when you're underage and you got an armed robbery or something like that, don't nobody really want to give you no chance to work in no restaurant or none of that stuff. So you really make it harder on your life.
Oh yeah.
And being young, you really don't think about your decisions. You don't really think. A lot of us just do it, right? We just do it. We don't think about it at all. My friends are in this, I'm gonna just do it too, because everybody else, we follow the leader. And the leader don't got no guidance neither. Yeah. So everybody's running astray. We don't know what we're doing. We just running towards something that's gonna put us in a messed up situation. It's best to get all the information in or look at the environment that's around you. Because if we'd have did that, if I would have did it, I'm looking at all these people going in and out of jail. They get out, they do the same thing and go right back to jail. I should have been like, yeah, man, I don't think this should be the life that I should choose, because they keep doing the same thing and everybody ain't getting the same results. But they come home, make a bunch of money. Within 4 or 5 months, they got to go sit down for 5 years or 10 years. And down there, some case they doing life in prison right now. Can't even come home because they don't got caught with so much stuff and so many times. They only give you so many chances.
Yeah.
So it's best to think things through before you really try to get into some mess before you set
But
yourself
it's
up
just like,
for
how
life.
we say as kids, oh, I can't wait to be an adult. I can't wait till I'm 18. I can't wait till I'm 18 because you want to get out your parents' house. I mean, and with where we're at now and with the economy and stuff, it's just like, man, living in your parents' house at that age wasn't so bad. Not having to worry about bills and, all this other stuff, like we wanted this adult life, back then
Yeah.
when we weren't 18. And now that we got it, it's just like, ooh, like it's a little bit more, challenging at times than we thought it would be. Right. So, I mean, the same thing that you're saying that, if we really would have followed a certain path, younger, or would have been told, or, would have had a mentor to really help guide us, then, some of the choices, some of the decisions that we made, we would have thought differently, than to make those choices. So I definitely get where you're coming from, what you're saying there. Yeah.
A lot of us want to be grown fast
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I left my mama house 15 and I didn't never want to come back
Yeah.
until the house got busted, and then I ain't really have no choice but to
Yeah.
go back.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But let's hit this one. What were some of the temptations you saw around you, and how did you avoid them?
Some of the temptations that I saw around me. Ooh. There's a lot of temptations, I mean, you're a kid, you're growing up. Like I said, there was no peer pressure on me because the individuals knew who I was. They knew who my dad was and, kind of kept things from me. But I think that all kids want to fit in, right? All of them want to feel like they're somebody. All of them want to feel like they're popular, right? And so I think having all of that, and seeing some of the things that other individuals are getting, like I think for me, my thing for really wanting to fit in was more so when it came down to like the clothes and stuff that we used to wear as kids, right? We used to wear the hand-me-downs. We used to wear back then we called them Bobos, right? The non-name brand shoes. We get the shoes from Payless. And when you getting picked on as a kid for stuff like that, it's just like, it's hard, it's difficult, and you want to be, you want to fit in with everyone else. I remember so much to the point that I got a pair of shoes from Payless one year. I don't remember. This was middle school during this time, and they looked like Adidas, just like Adidas. And I went, and on the back of the shoe, I actually drew the 3 stripes. I drew the Adidas 3 stripes, and I did it in pencil first, and then I went over it with the pen, and they looked just like Adidas. No one questioned me. No one said anything. And Jamal, he remembers this story. We went to a camp that summer, and he got mad at me. He got mad at me about something that morning, and he went and told everyone, them ain't even really name brand shoes. Those are some Bobos that he wearing. And I just remember everybody going and looking at the back of my shoes and like, oh, it was like, yeah, like that name brand, he been fooling people. But I think that's really to the extent of, just influence and really wanting to fit in with people. Is just, you look at certain things and you want what other people have. That's just human nature. And it's not that, you want it in a sense of, oh, I need to be better than this person. It's just you want to have some of the accomplishments that other individuals have. But like I said earlier, we all have to go down, our own journey, down our own path to, what success is. And even now when you're looking at success, right? Success is different for everyone. So what I look at as success, you might look at it and say, for you, it's something different. It looks different from you, right? So we all have our own journey, our own paths, but that was to the extent of me really wanting to fit in with individuals. I played sports, so I was a jock, I guess you could say. I was in the band, played instruments. I think my My only downside during that time is the color of my skin. I used to get picked on for being so dark. Oh, he looks like Wesley Snipes. My voice, in high school had gotten deep, and it was, he sounds like Barry White, or he looks, like Akon, or he sounds like Mufasa and stuff like that. But, I never really had to fit in because of those things. It was just, kind of just what came with it, just kids being kids and kind of going at each other, really.
All of us wanted to fit in. Because I know, like, elementary school, from elementary, I got my first pair of name brand shoes. It was 5th grade. Everything else was hand me down. Everything else we used to get from the thrift store. Everything came from the thrift store, unless it was Easter or Christmas. My mom would go find us a nice little outfit out of the dollar store. The dollar store used to have a whole bunch of nice little shirts with the like got a sewed on vest on it.
Yeah.
And we used to wear them. And I remember I got picked on. Kindergarten. Dude picked on me decent because I had three pair of pants. They was corduroy pants. It was a red pair, brown pair, and a green pair. So I would wear, you wear one pair Monday, then you wear the next pair Tuesday, then you try to switch it up on Thursday and Friday, and but I always had a sweater in. But it was like, man, you wearing the same pants, same pants. I was like, man, you better leave it alone. My grandma I was ready to fight about them pants, man. My grandma bought me these pants, man. I got into a fight on the bus.
Yeah.
I got into a fight on the bus. It was a damn 5th grader. But it was talking trash about my clothes. And I just got so furious, dog. I got so furious. And I was walking by him and he kicked my leg. I dove on him on the seat, and I was just trying to hit him so hard. I was really trying to hurt him, but it was all about my clothes.
Yeah.
And Kenyatta pulled me off. He was like, chill out, man. I was so mad I was crying.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, like, when I think about stuff like that, like, everybody always you want to have the nicest clothes because everybody was to have Nikes, and they parents were able to do different things for them that we wasn't able to get. So it kind of make you feel like less of a person. And then they come and they be like, oh, they got Nikes, they got this, they got that, but they great, they're failing their class.
Yeah.
So like, I got A's in my class. So I'm like, you just a dumb kid with nice clothes.
Yeah.
And a lot of them it was the same way, because a lot of them, like, I used to help a lot of them because I had to basically teach myself everything growing up.
Yeah.
My mama she didn't know the math I was doing. She didn't know the language or none of that stuff. Everything I had to do in class, I really had to pay attention if I really wanted to pass. So if I wasn't paying attention, then I would have failed. But I paid attention, and I really got good grades.
Yeah.
And I started slacking. Terribly. End of my 11th grade year, it was terrible, dog. 11th grade, go to my senior year, drop out of school, got arrested.
Yeah.
Just crazy. But that's another story. But let's get to this. Do you ever feel pressure to fit in with the crowd, or how did you handle it? Because we kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, I never felt pressure to fit in, and I think, again, because going back to what I stated earlier about hard work, determination, and education. I remember at one point I cried for having a B on my progress report. This wasn't even a report card. This was the progress report. I'm like, I'm not a B student. I'm a straight A student, right? And so the pressure to fit in it was never really there for me. Like I said, playing sports, that kind of made me a jock and made me popular. Especially in high school, I was the person that, had the most athletic body out of all of like the football and basketball players and stuff like that. I wasn't big, but, I had the calf muscles because I've always run track and field. I had the 8-pack abs and everything, you know what I'm saying? And so when it came to like just naturally a natural athlete and stuff like that, like, I was always kind of there. And so people used to compliment me on that all the time. And even when it got into my senior year of high school, I remember they would talk about and they would say that, well, Tron, even if you don't make it for sports, you're going to make it. You got the grades, man. You have some individuals who are great athletes, but they don't have the grades. You have other individuals who are, smart and, they're only playing sports just to, kind of take up time. They know they're not going to make it. But for me, it was both, like I could have made it in sports and I had the education on top of that. So yeah, there's never really any peer pressure for me to really fit in with individuals. Like I was accepted by all when I actually, funny thing is, so and so in high school, I went to Lake Ware my freshman year, but then I moved during that summer to go to North Marion for my last 3 years. And so when I went there, everybody was saying, oh, there's this kid who's coming from Lake Ware. Like, he's an athlete. He gonna take some of y'all positions. And even up until senior year, when individuals who were ahead of me in sports, more so football, because I didn't start in football, but in basketball, I was a starter every year since freshman year. But I remember that some of the scouts would come out and they would see me during practice and they would ask the question. They would say, oh, well, this guy right here, man, he's an athlete. Why don't we have any film on him? They would come to look at other players, and they would see me during practice. And the coach would say the same thing all the time. He doesn't get the playing time he deserves. And they would always ask him the question, well, why not? Does he have a bad attitude? Does he great at practice, but he's not as good in games? Like, why? We don't understand it. And the coach could only say the same thing. He doesn't get the playing time he deserves. Even so much so that some of the scouts, when they came out and I spoke to them, they're like, oh, we know who you are. We just don't have no game film on you because you're not, you're not getting any playing time, although you do deserve it. And so, that even from that, people being able to acknowledge who you are and acknowledge your worth. Again, there was no need to really feel like that I needed to fit in. It was just to go out and do what I could do. This is stuff that was under my control and be able to do it to the best of my ability. And, like I said, I was popular. I had, everyone around me who was supporting me. And so, yeah, no real need to fit in at all. Like, I was a pretty popular person.
So basically, no need to fit in when you're being yourself.
What was that?
No need to fit in when you're being yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Don't need to fit in. That's it. Who were the role models and mentors that helped keep you on track?
So who were my role models and who were my mentors? Again, so basically from the second half of fifth grade up until senior year graduating, it was my foster parents. Because I never wanted to go to North Marion.
Yeah.
You and I know, Lake Ware football team, we always have good freshman team. We always have good, JV team. But the varsity team was, I think, when I got there my freshman year, so it would have been 8th, 9th grade for me. I think they had won like 2 games in 2 years, the senior team. And I never wanted to go to North Marion. But I remember that year, my freshman year, they had put North Marion had put so many kids on D1 scholarships for sports. Football alone, I think they had like, 3 or 4 or 5 people or something like that on D1 AA, D2 scholarships in football. And so my thing was, if I want to get a scholarship, I have to go to this school that's actually really producing athletes. And so that's when I actually, I left my foster parents and I went and I lived in a group home from the summer of sophomore year up until my senior year. But they were always there to support me. right? So they would come to the games on senior night. They came out there, all the home games and stuff. They're always there. They was always supporting me, throughout that whole transition and just, really stepping up and showing up for me. And then as I got ready to transition out of high school into college, I had this one lady, her name is Miss Myrtle Hodges. The child welfare agency that I was working for at that time, she was working there too. And she was a person that was always fill out this job application, fill out this scholarship, fill out this internship, etc. And so she really was my mentor after high school, because she was always pushing me to be better, to be better, to be better. Like, you're a young black man, the, odds for you, the odds already against you. Exactly. So, with the odds being against you, like, you have to be better than, your counterparts and your, individuals who your competition, who you're going up against. And I just remember she always pushed me, even so much to the point where she was just like, you need to apply to go to Harvard. And I'm like, what am I going to do if I don't make it? I'm foster child. I have no one to turn back to. I have no family to turn back to. If things don't go right, and I'm living in a whole different state. She pressured me. You need to apply. You need to apply. And I'm just like, anxiety, being scared. I'm just like, I can't do it. And I remember her saying that, well, you could always call yourself a Harvard dropout. I'm like, unless I'm someone like Bill Gates or, Mark Zuckerberg, like, that doesn't really fly to say that I'm a Harvard, dropout, unless I create something, significant. But I remember, she was a mentor, still is a mentor for me to this day, to really always push beyond the limits, and to do more and to be more, as an individual on a human level, and not just, for myself, but to others as well. And so, yeah, those three people. So my two foster parents, and then Miss Myrtle Hodges, been my mentors. I've had a few others like Shalonda McHenry Sims. She's been a mentor and an inspiration and a guide to me as well. And some of the other individuals, Evie Trochet, who I work with at that organization. And there's others in the organization as well. But, it's really mentors that you can look back at and say that they really helped you. They really assisted you, and they were really there for you, and they were pushing you to be more, to do more. I can say those individuals. And then I think one more is, there's a couple more, but one more is Kimberly Blackshear. So I got into consulting work with the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, NCTSN. And so Kimberly Blackshear, she's always, just kind of been there to be a listening ear and to, really help push forward with, the work that I've done in trauma and advocacy, et cetera. So I've had mentors really all throughout my life.
Yeah, that's good. The right people in your corner help you build a successful path. A lot of us, if more people had people guiding them in the right direction, it'll be a big change, and like in our community and certain things for them kids. Because if you instill that into them at a younger age, you'll be way better off in your life. Just like growing up, I'd have had my father there more, even though he was doing whatever he was doing, and he'd have been like, "Hey, no, you need to, no, don't do that. Stay at school, keep playing ball." Like those little things right there would have changed like the whole trajectory of my life by just having that one person there saying that. Right? I was just there. It was just mostly my mama and my grandma.
Yeah.
Grandma trying to beat us up with the Bible all the time, making us go to Bible study, church, and my mama worked 17, 18 hours a day. So we rarely ever see my mama just for like on Sundays, but she'll work half a day Sunday. My mama used to work like 7 days a week, and so she'd be gone. Like I see my mama tired. I got her a pot boil for water, her clothes and stuff for the next day. She come on, wash her butt up 4 o'clock in the morning, driving back to work. And but she was there. She loved us. She did what she could. Just a little more mentorship with a guy to life look better. All right, this is segment 3, sports and education. How did sports first become a part of your life?
Well, like I said, going back to actually, I do have it here. It's amazing what you keep as a kid. It's kind of ripped up now. Man, these pictures, these drawings, but we used to have to do like a journal every day. So you got to see
Yeah.
me, shooting the basketball. I actually got way better in drawing, but you see me, making plays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As a kid, and I talked about, today in PE, I did a tryout, and I actually made the team. I talked about we had free choice today. I played basketball and I scored 8 points alone just for my team, and we won. And I made the last game. And I made the game winning shot. So it's just like, sports has really always been, a part of me growing up. So much so that in 3rd grade, I remember. Now, I don't know how they actually measured it, but I remember we used to call it running club. And back then they used to have the award. So it was like the presidential, I think it was like the presidential and the vice presidential award or something like that. So if you did certain things, you received like that certificate. And so I remember back then I ran a mile and they said it was an 8:11, 8 minutes and 11 seconds. And I was in 3rd grade. And I remember them saying that I had the fastest time in the entire school. And, of course, that makes you feel good. And so they took me and 2 other guys and they put us against each other. And they made us race the mile and to see how we did. And, you racing against competition, you get better. And I think I still end up coming in first, but it ended up being like 6 minutes and something. Now, again, I don't know how. So the second time when we ran it against each other, it was like in a parking lot, and they told us how many laps we had to do. So I don't know, how accurate the measurements were. So to go from 8 minutes, 11 seconds, doing it around a trail to, doing it in under 7 minutes as a person in 3rd grade. But I just remember, track and field, was all, I love running, and I don't know why, even as a kid, I used to run around in PE like I'm Speedy Gonzalez. Heba, Hyundai, running around. And remember that cartoon. And on up until middle school and high school, just love track and field, love football. That's my number one sport, and love basketball as well. But in middle school, I was in the band. I was in concert band, solo and ensemble concert band, and I was also in marching band. And so as I was getting ready to transition into high school, my parents told me that it's going to be one or the other. Either you're going to play sports or you're going to do band. Well, I grew up loving sports, so that was a pretty easy choice for me. It's kind of sad that I had to pick, because I think at that time, Lake Weir, their band, they were sending kids internationally to like Europe to go play and stuff. So I really want to participate in that, but I love sports a lot more. So, just really getting involved in sports, that was something that I really enjoyed, kind of helped shape my life. Honestly, especially in high school, like if kids can get involved in something, whether it's sports or some kind of activity, that tends to really build those relationships, build those friendships, build those mentorships. But also it can keep kids from getting in trouble, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Versus going home and your parents not being there and you're doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing. I think, if they get involved with sports or some kind of activity or club or team or organization, they can really enhance their skills, as they're coming into themselves and becoming a young adult. So I would advocate for that at any point in time. But that's how sports really help, to just influence me from all the way back from 2nd grade, 3rd grade.
Oh, basically, you channeled it, because a lot of times you do certain things that you like to make you not think about the things that you're going through in your life, right? So your sports could be your outlet, right? Your stress outlet, your depression outlet. You know what I mean? So you get out there on that field and you run. So your mind you're clearing out all that clutter in your mind and all those negative thoughts, and you just pull in all that positivity.
Yeah. It is nice to, like I said, especially when you're popular in sports. It's also kind of nice, when you're at a basketball game and you see the cheerleaders in the stand holding up signs for you. That's not that's not bad to have as well. So
Yeah, that's what it made the best out of it.
hmm
What lessons did sports teach you that you still apply today?
I think I think it taught me two things. One of the things is my football coach at North Marion, Coach Craig Damon. He always said the thing about that if you are early, you are on time. If you
Mhm.
are on time, you
Yeah,
are late.
late.
And
Hmm.
that stuck with me then, and it still sticks with me now because I'm a person that I'm very anal about time. And so, if I'm running late or something's going on, like I hate it. You know what I mean? But when other individuals are, like running late or you're waiting and, you don't want to reach out to them like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? But, you're just sitting there waiting. I think that time is the most precious asset, the most precious commodity that you can have. It is time. And you can't gain time. You can only lose it. Right. So even if I'm driving on the road and it says that, hey, it's going to take me 3.5 hours to get from, where I'm at from Tampa to Miami. And I get there in 3 hours and 15 minutes and I say, oh, I gained time. Well, no, not really. I was just driving a little bit faster and I got there faster, but I didn't necessarily gain time because the time is still going to,
Still
to
gonna move.
continue to go like it does every single day. But what I learned is that, with time that we do so much or try to do so much when we're younger, or either we don't feel like we've done enough when we were younger, that when we get older, we're looking back at our accomplishments and the things that we've achieved that we've never really, sat down to really congratulate ourselves and say, I've been through something. I've had those challenges that I've gone through and I was able to make it through that. Or, we're working and we're doing so much that, time just seems to fly by. And before we know it, it's just like, oh man, like, where did the time go? Right. I used to have friends that I would joke with them because I was I'm about 3 or 4 years older. And so I always got, oh, hey, old man, hey, old man. And I told him, I said, you turn 18. Well, you turn 16. That's a milestone. 18 is another milestone because you're getting out of your house,
Mm.
getting out of your parents' home. 21 is another milestone. If you do drink, you're able to purchase alcohol legally. And then in the state of Florida at 25, you can actually finally rent out a car without having, someone else older than you doing it. But after 25, it just goes. Like the time just goes. And so, they used to call me old man, old man. And now they're in their 30s, right? And I'm just like, you see how you see how fast it seems like time actually goes. And so just time in itself, that's really what sports taught me, to try to be on time to everything that you're doing, but also to live in the moment, do as much as you can, but don't let time pass by, without looking back and congratulating yourself on what you've
Where
achieved
you
and where
was
you've
and
gotten
where
to.
you
Because a
were at
lot of
now.
times, we're just so busy on the run, on the go, that, we don't take time to really just look back at the things that we've achieved or look back and to appreciate, what's around us because we're always on go mode. And I think I realized that as well is that a girl that I was dating at the time, and she was from Europe, and when they go, they call it holiday, but when they go on vacation, they go on vacation. For us, we're still on our cell phones, we're checking emails, scrolling, we're responding back and stuff like that. But when they go on vacation, they really go on vacation. And it's like, you can't relive these years, that's passing you by. You can't relive this time that's passing you by. So it's like live in the moment, but
And enjoy
appreciate where you've come from, the things you've accomplished, but also
it.
to, when you have time to do things, take that time out and do it. And so I would encourage everyone at least once a month, take some time out for yourself and do something for yourself, whether that's reading a book, taking a walk, taking yourself to the movies, going to the beach, wherever that might be. Like, take that time to actually do something for yourself at least once a month. Doesn't have to be on the same day, just once a month, do something for yourself.
Yeah, that make you touched a lot of key points because we don't get none of the time back that we lose. And I felt that I wasted so much time of my life ripping running the streets. And when I changed like my mindset about that, I wanted to catch up. So I wrote my book, I published the book, I created an online course teaching how to use various skills. And I went and got my CDL. I went and got my real estate license, and I went and got my broker license. I published 2 more books. I just started like going all in. My whole thing was to try to lead my kids by my action and not by my word. Because the biggest thing was everybody be like, "Oh yeah, you need to do this. You need to do that." You telling them, "Yeah, do this, do that," but you can't lead somebody if you're not being led yourself, right? So I kept saying, "Y'all don't do this, don't do that,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "It's just gonna go in, it's gonna go out." But if I change my mentality, I change my path of life, start showing them that I can do this, then that gives them a chance to be like, "Oh, their dad turned around, and now I know that I can do the same thing because he's leading us by actions." It's like now to this day, everything I do, I lead by action. Like with working, like everything, I show them that this is what I'm doing, and this is what you can do it too if you want to. But being on time,
Yeah.
being on time is a big thing because you show the importance of that person or whatever. Like if you're on an interview or you're going to work or whatever else, because if you don't be there on time or a little bit early, they can be like, "Nah, man, you really don't want this opportunity, even if, you know what I'm saying, no matter what it is, show that person that your time is just as important as theirs." So it's a respect thing too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's hit this. How did you handle the discipline of balancing school, sports, and personal life?
Balancing school, sports, and personal life. Well, like I said, I cried for having a B on a progress report. There wasn't even a report card. So for me, school was always important. I remember even, far back to when I was learning how to spell words in elementary school, when I was learning how to speak in Spanish in elementary school. And so education was really, really always number one before I even ended up in my final foster home, outside of the group home, in my foster parents' home. Education was always important to me. Anyway, I went to year-round school. And so being on track and off track with year-round school where, you go for a month and a half, you off for a week. You go for, 2 months, you off for 2 weeks, right? And so during that time when we were off track and we weren't in school, my foster parents at that time, they're always giving me, these long math problems, long division problems, and these, words to spell and stuff like that. And I remember being, it was first or second grade, and it was, spelling the word enjoy. And for, even sounding, it sounds so simple, so easy now. But, I'm just sitting here trying to spell it, and I can't spell it for nothing at all. And it's like, go take a break, come back at it. And I go outside, and a Coca-Cola truck passes by and it says, "Enjoy Coca-Cola." And I'm like, oh, after about 5 minutes of being outside, I come back in the house. I'm like, oh, I know how to spell it. And, and I spelled it, right? And she was like, you probably got, your brother probably told you how to spell it. I'm like, being a little arrogant, cocky first grade or second grade, I'm like, I'm smarter than him. How is he going to teach me, how to spell words and how to do, these math problems, division, long division, etc. And so education was always important to me at a young age because I knew no matter what that to get to where I wanted to go, that education, that would take me, that would really take me places. As far as sports, like I said, I did everything in my power, everything I could. I still love sports, track and field, basketball, football, baseball, soccer. I just absolutely love sports. I've even gotten into tennis. Watching tennis lately has been, very interesting to me. When you're in high school, even in college, the thing that comes first is student. It's student athlete. So the student part comes first. And then So the education, and then the sports, and then whatever else comes with it. And so, growing up in the child welfare systems from about 13 until 18, you learn these, we had these things called life skills classes. So it teaches you how to cook, teaches you about personal hygiene. It teaches you about finance, how to write out a check. Although, people probably, well, there's some people probably still, have checkbooks, but how to write out checks. It teaches you how to job interview, teaches you how to fill out, college applications, how to do resumes, et cetera, et cetera. So luckily for me, I had that growing up in the system, because that's something that the child welfare system, foster care system provides, because it's like when you get 18, you still have family to fall back on. Like I said earlier, I had, I'm not applying to Harvard because I have no one to fall back on if anything happens to me, right? I'm 18. I got to figure this out for myself, and there's, you're scared, you're anxious, and that anxiety that's there. And so for me, like I said, education, I always knew that it was going to take me far. But during that time, you learn these different skills, and those skills, that skill set, it helps with being able to balance all of that throughout. So you're balancing that education, you're balancing, those sports, you're balancing your time and the things that, you're trying to do in order to be successful. And so I would say those life skills courses that we had to take for our county, Marion County at the time, life skills classes or independent living classes, they were the first Monday of the month. And then after I actually graduated high school, like I said, and I was working for the one child welfare agency, I actually started teaching those life skills classes in the different 4 or 5 counties. Marion, Citrus, Lake County, Pasco, Hillsborough. I think those are the 5. So, yeah.
Yeah. And basically, you just learn how to balance it out.
Yeah. Definitely help. I mean, I will say that growing up in the system, anybody's going to want to live with their family, especially biological, parents, right? But what I will say is that there were some advantages that we have that the, normal everyday kids, not going to receive. And so those life skills classes, they do try to set you up for as much success as possible, as you're getting ready to age out and become an adult. Because like you said, you left home at 14, 15, 16, and then had to come, back in the house, and you really had to learn all this stuff on your own, how to be a man. I will say that, with those type of programs that are put in place for those in a foster care system, it does really help them to, at least be successful with. Yeah, I mean, some people, they're not going to take heed to it, right? So, you take something like money management. Some are still going to go out there, they're going to get that first paycheck and they're going to blow it because it's more money than they've ever had, at one time. But at least they are giving you the skills, they're giving you the tools to, at least try to be successful. So once you turn 18 and you get out in society. So again, correlating back to what I said earlier, we don't want this adult life the way we think that we want it. Can't wait till I'm 18 and I'm out the house. And now, you're at the house and it's like, oh, I got all this stuff that I got to deal with. Yeah.
Basically learning how to balance life, because a lot of us don't know how to balance it, but we think we know everything. Then 18-year-old kid, you go out there and just blow everything. My oldest do the same thing all the time. But you instill the information in them. All you can do is instill it in them, and it's up to them to take the information you give them. Because 9 times out of 10, you already don't live the life. So you don't made the mistakes. So learn from the person that already made the mistakes instead of going out there and making them on your own. And then having to fall back and be like, hey, I know I like that, I did this and that. Like, hey man, didn't I just tell you? I told you not to do that.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So you gotta keep falling down when you got the information right in front of you.
Yeah.
That's all you can do. So I know I put my best foot forward towards all of them. Give them what I need, what they need for their self, the progress in their life. All right, what was the path like from high school to college?
You said what was the path like in college?
From high school to college.
From high school to college. So So the way I got involved with the child welfare organization is it actually kind of came off as a joke. They wanted to write about me being a success story. You know, first you have a male who's in the foster care system who graduated high school. Not only is he a male, he is a black male.
Yeah.
Not only is he a black male, but he has been successful, throughout school with his, education and grades. And so, with that transition, I remember the quote that they used, and I have a newspaper article somewhere. And the quote was somewhat to the effect of, I'm scared, but I know that everything is going to be all right. Because again, you don't have anyone to turn back to. This life thing. You got to figure it out on your own, man. Like it's up to you. Once you turn 18, because you were a ward of the state, you were orphaned essentially, and now you're out here on your own. And so I think with that transition, I was very, very scared, very nervous. I literally just talked about the life skill classes, but even having, those life skill classes that, I had taken from the age of 13 up until 18, still that anxiety of what if. And I remember in one of my foster homes, I was the what if kid. Anytime they would say something, I would say, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? What if this person says this? Right. And I remember I used to do it so much that the foster parent at the time, they was like, stop saying what if, stop asking what if. Right. But I was always what if, just because I always wanted to know, what is the alternative outcome? And so, that transition, it actually ended up being a lot easier than I thought. And so I talked about not having anybody to turn back to. Yes, I had my foster parents who were there, who helped me, or who were there for me throughout high school. I didn't realize that they were going to be there for me in college. And so when college came, so all throughout my senior year, Mr. Otis, he was always like, son, get your license. But going back to your previous question about being able to balance things, school, athletics, and personal time, I never got my license until after high school because I'm trying to get a scholarship here in sports, mainly in football. And so when I turned 18, graduated high school, I eventually that summer ended up getting my license and everything, but they were there for me then. So, going out of their way and, helping me transition into college, looking at apartments, buying me furniture for my first apartment and stuff, from TVs to dressers and mirrors. And he wanted me to get my license because he wanted to give me his truck. He was like, you can do whatever, son. You can do whatever you want to do with it. And I traded the truck in, and they co-signed for me, but got my first car. Right. So I end up, luckily for me, I end up having someone, still there for me afterwards. But I didn't know that would be the case at the time. And so that transition, again, it was scary finding out, that they were going to be there to help me, to assist me, help me move in, and that whole thing. It ended up being a really good thing, and so the transition, it wasn't really difficult. Still scared, still anxious at the time, but once everything started rolling, it was pretty good.
That's good. So basically, you thought you was on your own through the
What'd you say?
transition. You said you thought you was on your own,
Yeah.
but they was already there. They never left your corner.
Mm-hmm.
They seen the determination in you, and
Yeah.
you wasn't giving up on yourself, even though all the obstacles that you had in your life, and they seen that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they stuck with you, man.
Yeah.
And you still
Yeah.
like to this day, you're still determined. You're still out doing your thing. You never gave up on yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
that you got an amazing story.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story, and you're doing it. So keep that up. Don't never let nobody down you or none of that, man. There's a lot of us through life, we go through so much, and we deal with so much alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Certain things that we have that we've been through, you don't tell everybody like what you're going
Yeah.
through all the time, because a lot of times you know that they can't relate to it, or they're
Right.
gonna make you seem like you're weak, or you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
and then we just bottle it in, and we just carry it, and it's kind of like holding like a ball and chain. Um, I know I've been through a lot of stuff in my life
Yeah.
that I still fight with in my mind, just in my mind myself. And I deal with it alone. I deal with it alone. I get up, I do my prayers, I pray, I read my Bible, and that's how I kind of like I set my tone for my day. And I don't got to the ability now when I hear the noise that's speaking inside of my mind that I can silence and
Mm-hmm.
push it out and just, you know what I mean? You ain't finna beat me
Absolutely.
today. You ain't gonna beat me tomorrow. You ain't gonna beat me the next day. I'm gonna win this no matter what. And I keep going.
Yeah.
I go to segment 4, big moments and recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the doctor can and how did that opportunity come about?
And I was applying for stuff. Now, mind you, I had scholarships. I had scholarships from academic scholarships back in high school, Bright Futures, as well as foster care, child welfare. They were paying for my school as well. But, I'm ambitious. So, I want as many scholarships as I can receive. And so she told me about that website. I went on. I'm applying, you get tired because it's almost like a resume where you have to change it and you have to keep catering it to specific organizations. And so I'm like, I wish there was something different I could do than to continue, just writing. And saw Dr. Pepper. Now, mind you, I'm a person that, I don't really drink sodas like that. I'll drink a Sprite like here and there. But I actually did like Dr. Pepper, although I didn't drink it a whole lot. And so, I'm going through and I'm reading the instructions, and it's like, create a, minute video telling why you want the scholarship and what you're going to do if you receive it. So I sat there and I thought about what I was going to say. After thinking about what I was going to say, I'm like, okay, I got it. Ran to the store, grabbed 2 20-ounce bottles of Dr. Pepper, and I set both of them alongside me. And I actually did it in one take. Like to be very exact, but I ended up getting it in one take. So exactly in 60 seconds, I created that video talking about why I wanted the scholarship, what I was going to do, if I got it once I received it. And what ended up happening is, reading through all the instructions and the directions, they tell you that if they're going to reach out to you 2 times max. If once they reached out to you, if you don't respond, they move on to the next person. And so what they do is they select 5 people this is during the bowl game season. And so like the Big Ten, I think it was the Pac-12, the SEC, the ACC championship, and then the national championship. So 4 bowl games and then the national championship game. And you don't get to select which one you go to. They just kind of tell you, which that was okay, that's fine. And they fly you out, free trip with an additional person. They'll fly them out as well. And so what ended up happening with that is, I knew that they couldn't leave a voicemail. And so I'm laying on the couch and I'm thinking about this thing. And I think, we manifest everything. When you talk about faith and stuff, like I think we manifest, things good or bad. You can sit here and be thinking about someone and, next thing you know, they're calling you or they're texting you to check in on you. And you're like, man, I was just thinking about you, right? And so I believe that we manifest everything. And so I'm laying on the couch and I'm thinking about this thing. I'm thinking about it. And something says stop. Something just tells me like to stop. Like a voice just tells me to stop. Right. And I get a phone call and I'm laying on the couch and I'm looking at it and I'm like, Waco, Texas. No, I don't know anyone from Waco, Texas. So, I'm just sitting and I don't know why, but I'm literally just staring at the phone the whole time. Like and something says, you better pick it up. You better pick it up. I don't pick it up. What ends up happening is something says call back. And I call back and it says, hi, this is Dr. Pepper Snapple Group. And I'm like, oh, shoot, this was them calling about the scholarship. And so this lady picks up on the other end and I'm like, yeah, I was like, they just called me, but she's like, do you know who called? And I said, no, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's about the scholarship. This is the only reason why they could be calling me. And of course, when I'm looking at the phone initially at the number, this was way before, we used to get all the spam calls that we have today. But even then, I'm like, I don't know anybody from, Waco, Texas, so I'm not picking up the phone. And she's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, well, hopefully they call back. My parents, they're sitting out in the front. And I go and I tell them about it, and I say, I may have just blown this opportunity where, they called me because they're going to only call twice, and I don't know when they're going to call back again. If it's today, next week, they may have moved on to the next person. And while I'm telling them that, the phone rings again, and this is like 10 minutes later at this point. The phone rings again, and they're calling back. Oh, I got to go. So I pick up the phone, and I'm talking to them, and they're introducing themselves and telling me who they are, and says, we're going to fly you out to the Big Ten game. I think that was that Big Ten game was Michigan State and Ohio State, I believe. I know Michigan State was one of the teams. I believe Ohio State was the other team. And they were like, we're going to fly you out. We'll fly one other person out. You'll be there for 3 or 4 days to be able to compete for a scholarship with Dr. Pepper. I'm happy. I'm excited. I end up getting second prize there. So they fly 5 people out for each bowl game. So 10 people total, so it's you and whoever flies out with you. But as far as the individuals competing, they fly 5 people out. And first prize is $100,000. Second prize is $23,000 because Dr. Pepper is all about 23 flavors, etc. You might see in the background here, I actually have the Dr. Pepper jersey that they gave us. It has the number 23 on it on the sides. But they're all about 23 flavors, etc. So that's why the big discrepancy between first and second prize, $100,000 and $23,000, and then third, fourth, fifth prize get $5,000, $7,500, $10,000, whatever that prize money is. And we do get that full amount. So I remember when I was leaving the field, someone was like, they probably don't even get, $100,000. They probably don't even get $23,000. No, we get the full amount. I have the checks right here. So this is back in December the 3rd, 2011. Dr. Pepper, $23,000 scholarship, and they sent me a second one. So I have 2 because the first one they actually spelled my name wrong on that one. So I mean this. It's a box, a cardboard check. I mean, I can't go cash it or anything like that. But yeah, I wanted them to have it correct. So they actually sent me out another one, thankfully. And so I ended up winning that scholarship where, following up from that, it really opened a lot of doors where, again, you might be able to see this is a plaque that I have. I was on the cans as well. Got a can right here. Dr. Pepper, and actually a lot of my friends actually saw the cans before I even knew that they were out. It says Antron McCullough, St. Leo University, $23,000 winner. Antron is studying business so that he can be a strong advocate for foster children and provide support to help them achieve their goals. That was on the bottles as well. So they fly us out, and we do like a photo shoot, video shoot, and they put us in commercials and stuff like that. So it was really overall just great experience, just something that was really fun. Got to meet a lot of people and just working with a lot of people, see a lot of the behind the scenes type things as far as in the work and everything that they go to putting on something like that. So I really did enjoy that, winning that scholarship. That was probably my favorite scholarship that I've won.
Yeah, that was a big deal. You manifested in fruition, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
You sure did.
Yeah. I definitely feel. I mean, I feel like there's some things that I've manifested in my life, but like I said, like it's you can't describe that feeling when you're thinking about something and you hear a voice and don't know what that voice is, and something tells you to stop or something tells you to go and do this, right? Like you just hear it in your head. So with people who win the lottery and stuff, a lot of times you'll hear them say that I felt lucky, or something told me to go buy a ticket. I've never played the lottery in my life, but something told me to go buy a ticket or to go do this and to go do that. So I mean, when you think about things, when you think about it from a perspective where there's no resistance against it, and you just kind of put yourself in that mind state, those feelings towards that, what you want, you can manifest anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's some good stuff. That change your life. All right, let's hit number 15. What did being featured on that symbolize for you and for the people you knew that knew you?
I think what it symbolized for me was, it symbolized 2 things. I think the first thing that it symbolized was kind of like when I was first applying, I talked myself out of it, right? Because I'm just like, man, there's gonna be millions of people applying for this. You know what I mean? But as soon as I said that, something came over me and something said, why not you? You have a chance, just as much as anyone else who applies. And I remember them saying, they was like, your video was actually one of the top videos that we had seen. And we're not allowed to leave voicemails. We're not allowed to send emails, but we were going to send you an email because we wanted you, right? So, that goes back to what we talked about earlier with that hard work, that dedication, and what you put into something, is what you get out. And so what it really symbolized to me was, that, wow, how I talk about time and, how far I've actually come and, what I've been able to achieve in such a short amount of time, because that was 2011. I graduated high school 2006. So this is 5 years later. Had a big internship that ended up turning into a job in Washington, D.C. that I had done. And I had been talked all over Capitol Hill and D.C. with Congress about child welfare. I was a huge advocate, still am a huge advocate. And then this scholarship that came along. So I have done so much, in my life at an early age within, that 5-year period, that it just really symbolized not that I had made it, but that I had done something significant, especially for me, it was for the foster care community, let them know that you really can become something, even out of the situation, that you've gone through, the challenges that you face. You can still come out, become something, and be successful as long as you put your mind to it, as long as you put that, hard work and that effort towards it. So that's really what it symbolized for me. The second thing that it symbolized for me is, the unfortunate thing is, I never actually experienced hatred at that level. I end up Googling myself and putting Dr. Pepper next to it. And I remember a gentleman saying, so I'll take the can again. If you look at the can and where my face is, it's right there where the lid is, where you open it up and drink it. And, I remember seeing when I Googled, I remember seeing a gentleman said something about, Dr. Pepper is my favorite drink, especially diet. So I was on the diet, Dr. Pepper, the diet cans or whatnot. You don't get to pick which one you're on. They just kind of tell you, right? He's like, and Dr. Pepper is my favorite drink. But unfortunately, I have to look at this black man's face while I'm turning the drink up and I'm drinking it. And I'm just like, and I saw that, and then I saw some other comments on YouTube where individuals were like, because we posted this story or posted a 60-second video, and it was like, if this is true, what he's saying, that he grew up in the foster care system, they're like, this is a really good story if it's true. And I'm just like, I had never really experienced hatred, until that time. And I'm like, why would I lie about, growing up in the foster care system when all of this can be fact checked, when, the individuals around me know, and why am I getting hate, because you don't like that, I'm a black person that's, on your favorite drink, and you hate that you have to look into my eyes as you have the can turned up. And so, it really opened my eyes to, how the world is and how some individuals are, and I had some family members, biological family members, they were, a little bit upset with me because they were thinking that, oh, I'm going to give them part of the money. And I'm like, this is for school. This is a scholarship. I can't take this money and just hand it to you. This is for my education. And so I really, started to experience if you want to call that 15 minutes of fame, I really started to experience the downside of, what that would be like, of being like a celebrity, so to speak. But all in all, I take that, you take the good with the bad. But overall, it symbolized something, just someone coming from nothing, really, and being able to just make it out and make these accomplishments. And I think that me earning that scholarship and individuals seeing that and watching me during that time on the TV, it symbolized more good than the bad.
A lot of people just hate for no reason, though.
Say that one more time.
A lot of people just hate for no reason.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think that was my first time where, it was actually like, I actually have haters, I don't have haters. I'm a nice guy. I'm a kind guy, and I'm very humble as well. I'm a humble person. It was just like, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it, but it's, and it even got to the point so much that on social media, I stopped posting certain things because individuals, they were jealous. And I'm like, I don't look at it as me being, like bragging about what I'm doing. I look at it as like, this is a great accomplishment that I was able to achieve, and I'm excited about it. I'm happy about it. Let me post it. I don't care how many likes that I get. But if if you see this post, you might reach out to me, which I did have individuals reach out to me and say, hey, how would I go about being able to win this scholarship? You want it. You tell me, the background story about it and what that looks like. And maybe I have that same chance of being able to win, but nothing, no bragging or anything like that. So for a while, I actually stopped posting stuff on social media because I was just like, I have haters and I'm not a celebrity. People just being upset for no reason at all.
Yeah, but a lot of times, people that's close to you, they really don't mean you no good, or outside people, just because you're doing something that they're not doing, right? You got an opportunity that they didn't apply for, right? They didn't apply for it. They had the same 24. They could have did the same thing that you did. It's just like it really don't make sense. Like when I stopped doing the stuff, ripping around them streets and all that stuff there, my phone stopped ringing. Everybody started calling me weird. They start saying like, how you gonna pay your bills now? Like, what are you gonna do now? What are you gonna do now? It's like, we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, like what you said, the tests are given to, the hardest tests are given to, those who he knows that can actually pass those tests, right? And so those challenges, those difficulties that you go through, it really is to test you to, see, what are you going to do to be able to, make it out of this circumstance, make it out of this event to make success. Even growing up through foster care system adoption, I have a lot of people that looked at that situation after Dr. Pepper and they said, well, man, it sounds like foster care was actually, really fun. And I'm like, who wants to go to foster care? Who wants to be taken away from their family? Who wants to have their parents, all of their rights terminated, where you can't even see them, where you have no contact with them, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know where they're at, anybody like that? Like, nobody really wants that, you know what I'm saying? Like, would I give anything to have not grown up in the foster care system, to not be adopted, placed back in foster care? Absolutely. However, the question stands, will I have been at this point that I'm at now? Will I have, looked at these same opportunities? Will I have had these same mentors who were there for me, who were coaching me? Possibly, maybe not. But where would I be?
The trajectory of your life would have been probably different.
Yeah.
Your life would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It would have been totally different because, like I say, everybody go through phases of their life, man. You go through phases of your life, and it either keep you the same, you follow your environment, or just like a diamond, it builds all that pressure up, and it makes you so strong. It's so strong because all that stuff that you're going through is just chiseling away all the unnecessary stuff that you don't need in your life. And once it's been chiseled so much, then you come out to damn near perfection.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Damn near perfection. And you're shining too. Right? You're shining too. So for everybody that ever down anything that you was doing, or didn't look at your process as growth, right? Because we go through growth phases, we go through stagnant phases, we go through so many different phases in our life, and your mind determines which way you go with it. It's either you're gonna keep sitting here in this puddle, muttering in your misery, your depression, or whatever life been throwing you, or you finna stand up, tie your shoes, get your belt stuff together. You finna go at life, because life challenges us.
Yeah.
And you gotta be willing to deal with all the challenges that you have in your life, or it's not gonna change. It's not gonna get better. I wake up.
And I think sometimes too, like, for me, the challenges, the difficulties that I've gone through in life, where, you know, sometimes I just take a step back, you know, and I take time, you know, to meditate, I take time to breathe. And it's like the positive will happen just like that.
Yeah.
It's like if I don't take that time, you know what I'm saying, to acknowledge, you know, what that difficulty is that I'm going through, and to, you know, calm myself down and figure out, you know, how can I fix it, then the challenge is going to stay there. Like you say, with your mind.
It is.
You're just going to be worried. You're going to be anxious about everything, and it's not going to get better until you take that time to, you know, actually breathe and, okay, how am I able to combat this? How am I able to, you know, get over this hill, you know, get over this challenge, this difficulty that I'm dealing with? So, yeah.
You recalibrate it. You ain't got no pop-ups. Hopefully good.
Yeah.
Segment 5, community work and advocacy. Number 16. You now work to help communities recover from traumatic events. How did that start?
So that actually started from the foster care organization that I was working for. I told you back when I first started working for them. Actually, kind of started as a joke because I was going there and I was doing interviews about being a success story. And I joked around and I said, y'all might as well hire me on. I'm here like every day. And they actually created a position for me. And believe it or not, I definitely didn't talk as much back then as I did now. But what ended up happening was I was helping them with some grant writing work. And I wasn't doing the grant writing, but I was kind of telling them, you know, language to put in it to kind of, you know, help with youth and being able to use that youth voice. And so what I ended up doing when we had that conversation, there was a group, the NCTSN, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. They reached out to them about a group and they asked them, you know, can we get some youth voice to be able to speak on these different platforms? Because us as adults, us as professionals, we feel that we know everything, but the decision making that's being made, the individuals being the youth that is impacting, they're not having a voice, they're not having a say-so. And even growing up through the child welfare system, I remember 17 and a half, so 6 months before I turned 18, I went to the courthouse and my caseworker who was in front of the judge, they were speaking for a bit, and then the judge basically asked me to stand up, and he said, you know, it looks like you're doing everything right. You're, you know, you have good grades, you're doing well in school, you're playing sports, etc. He asked me a couple of questions like, you know, what was my plans after graduation? You know, I mentioned going to college, etc. But the judge literally asked me like 2 questions, maybe 3 questions max. It was like, well, it seems like you're good to go. And that was it. But on up to that part, I really never had a choice within the decision-making process of the things that were impacting me, the things that were affecting me growing up through the system. And so one of the things that I talked about earlier about if you want to go next door to stay the night at someone's house, even if you're your foster parents' own family and they've known them their entire life, anyone who's there that's 18 or older, they have to get fingerprinted. There's just, you know, the policies, the rules, regulations, you know, to keep the youth safe. And so I'm like, this isn't normal, you know, like as a foster child, I have no normalcy. I can't go off and go to my friend's house. I can't spend the night places. I can't go to the mall and be out, you know, for a couple of hours or something like that. It's just like, you know, we understand that there are rules and policies that are set in place to protect the youth. However, there's no normalcy for it. And so what I did was I created the first ever youth advisory council at this organization, and we built that council, and we had youth coming in and just really, talking and describing what they wanted to see as far as in change. And so from that, what we ended up doing was we was able to go to the state capitol in Tallahassee and just really talk with some of the congressmen and women just about normalcy and policies and issues. And so from that kind of allowed me to really kind of get my foot in the door on what true advocacy meant, and being able to go on Capitol Hill and speak to Congress and sit in Senate Finance Committee meetings, and being the chair of different committees, and just talk about the child welfare system and education for the youth, and youth who are dealing with psychotropic drugs and medications, etc. For me, when I first got put back into the foster care system after the failed adoption, I remember I went to a psychologist, and they talked to me, asked me a few questions, and they put me on antidepressant pills. And I took them for one night, and luckily my foster mom had the fortitude to understand, you put these kids on all this medication, this isn't the help that they really need. And so I think about 30 days later, went back to the doctor, and the doctor said, hey, it seems like you're doing much better, but we're going to put you on another 30-day supply, and then we're going to wean you off. And it was just like, well, I haven't been using it. The 30 days that, 30-day supply that you've given me, I haven't even been using it. You're telling me that I seem much better. However, in the same breath, you're saying that you want to give me another 30-day supply before weaning me off. How much sense does that make? And so just really being able to advocate for the youth, to get them to be able to advocate for themselves. So, it's like the voice of the voiceless. So they have that opportunity to really just kind of speak about the challenges that they're going through, their situations, and being able to have input on what impacts them on their day-to-day lives. And so that's really how I first got into advocacy.
So basically you took your past experiences and basically they opened a position up for you, and so basically it's just a platform for the kids that's in that system. They can talk for themselves and make it easier on them to spend time with family outside of that home, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that advocacy approach for youth, even outside of child welfare, just in everyday life, right? You as a parent, you make a lot of decisions for your kids, and understandably, because of your background, because of how you grew up, you know what's best for your kids, right? But also at the same time, there might be some decisions where the kid might want some input. It can be as simple as, what do y'all want to eat for dinner? Versus, oh, okay, you're going to cook what we feed you. What do y'all want to eat for dinner? Do y'all want to, come help make dinner? Let's have a family night, and y'all tell us, what we're going to make. We want to get together and make pizza. We want to do hamburgers on the grill, something like that. So even that is kind of like a form of advocacy, where the kids are being able to advocate for themselves and feel like, hey, we actually have a voice in this. And so that's what I wanted. And I realized that, hey, I'm out of the system, right? And so I don't have to go through that anymore. Everything that I went through for the 14 plus years that I was in, between foster care and adoption. However, I knew that there were individuals who were coming behind me who still didn't have a voice. And so I wanted to be able to speak out, to that, and also help them kind of lend their voice to those different type of challenges that they were facing.
Yeah. So let them speak for themselves. Because when you bring out something about the lunch and stuff and dinner, we do that with our kids. We got older kids too. My oldest is 20. My youngest about to be 2.
Yeah.
So we got a wide range of different age groups. We come up with a list of foods for the week, Monday through Sunday. So we're like, okay, because usually Wednesday be like pizza days. And we have chicken nuggets and French fries, or chicken nuggets and green beans, or hamburgers, or or certain tacos Tuesdays, or whatever else. And the kids like, yeah, I want this for this day or that day. You know what I mean? Make a lot of sense. Yeah, but it's good to have them speaking for themselves too, instead of just having them trying to hold everything in and bottle it out, no matter what life situations that they're going through. it's good always to like at least sit down with them and talk to them. Be like, hey, let's figure out a way to try to solve this problem with whatever you're going through too. And that makes them open up a little bit more to you about their issues.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it helped. And my kid's been homeschooled for like the last 6 years. So that's been a process in itself. My oldest two girls, they just graduated. One of them, she graduated, she was 17. One graduated, both of them graduated when they was like 17. Because I got an 18-year-old and I got a 17-year-old. And but one of them is the most creative person you could ever meet. Like she's something else. Like she draws, she do Legos. Like she just keep herself busy. Like you don't never really got to work. And she will sit in her bed. She will read all day. Even my 12-year-old, she'll lay her ass in the bed and get a book and just read and read and read. Sometimes I be messing with her. I was like, you read too much. You got to stop reading so much. I'm going to take the books. And she was like, why would you want to take a book?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all the knowledge, that they're taking in and that they're able to consume. I mean, you can't see the books down there, but my 1, 2, 3, my first 3 shelves from the bottom up are all books, just books that I've had in the past from, educational standpoint, but being able to, just learn about different things. I've really gotten back into reading. Prior, I really got out of reading, I want to say 3rd or 4th grade with the Harry Potter series. And that's because, they had the AR book clubs, the accelerated reader. And so, I mean, I was reading. And I just remember that the adopted family at that time, again, remember, he was a pastor. And so I think I had gotten through like the first 2 books and I was on the 3rd one of the Harry Potter series. And, of course, coming from that religious background, it was seen as, hey, this is witchcraft that they're talking about. They're talking about magic, and this and that. And, it really just kind of like, man, these are fun books to read. Like, I'm not trying to go out there and do, any magic or anything like that. But, that was taken from me. And so the joy of wanting to read, like, really left me for a number of years where I only read the books that I had to read, growing up. So the fact that she absolutely loves to read, I definitely, if she wants to get into some extracurricular activities, do other things, go outside, that's fine. But, the fact that she loves to read, I mean, she's really being able to consume all that knowledge. And who knows, the path that she may go down in the future or what she might build, what she might be able to create just from all this knowledge that she's gaining from reading.
I'm a big avid reader too. I got a lot of books, man. I just started diving into a whole bunch of information. Especially like when I went to prison, I didn't have the books that I really needed. So everybody was reading gangster books and wanted to be better criminals and all that mess. That I was reading westerns and I was reading the Bible because I wasn't trying to read none of that mess to make me into a better criminal.
Right.
And when I got out of there and I used to go to the library a lot. So I'll go to the library because I never really. I liked the reading because I liked it. American history was one of my favorite subjects in school. When I started, I read like 3 books a day, like these books like 200-300 pages, and I'll just sit there and I'll read them. And so when I came home, I just would go to the library when I'm looking for a job, whatever else. I'll just go check out me a couple books and come home and sit there and read. And then I got the last 7 years or so. I've been more like on information and like stocks, self-help. And so I buy a whole bunch of them. And when I finish reading one of them, I just go to another one. I just bought some old history, some old Black history books. This is one they came before Columbus. The African presence in ancient America, Ivan Shatima. It's basically talk about how the Black people was already here first. Like they was already floating on the boats and you know what I mean? They was already doing the boats and stuff before Christopher Columbus ever came over here and stuff. And just tell the history about that. And then I got another book about slavery. I just want to learn a little bit more about that, and then other than like self-help and information. But I got one book. It's like it says like the Bible about slavery, and slavery was a big business. They was treating us like poultry. That's the other book. The book about 500 pages. A big book. I ain't get started in it yet. I started this one though. Started this one, but I got all of them. I got a bunch of Napoleon Hill, Brian Tracy, damn near anything you can think about. John Hope Bryant books too. I got that. Napoleon Hill, listen to him every day. Like that's like the first person I wake up in the morning to listen to. So it's just a wide variety of stuff, man. Like been on it. But let's hit number 17. What kind of programs or initiatives have you been involved in?
Oh man, there's so many. Like I said, I know we've had a really good conversation here. Before, I definitely didn't talk as much as I do now, and I remember coming from that grant writing and the language that was put in it, and the organization who was asking, "Hey, can we get some youth to actually speak?" is really what set the tone to kind of get me to where I'm at today again, and like advocacy. And so what ended up happening was I worked with that organization, the NCTSN, National Child Traumatic Stress Network, and that opened up a lot of doors for me. So individuals who I was able to connect with, I mentioned Kimberly Blackshear earlier, also Chris Foreman, being an advocate for youth and trauma. And so what happened was, again, when you give these individuals like myself that platform or that ability to speak or at least be a part of the decision-making process, it opens up those doors where you can meet and connect with a lot more individuals where they say, hey, well, we had this youth to come and speak with us, talking about trauma or talking about the foster care system or talking about psychotropic drugs and medication or talking about the adoption, child welfare as a whole, etc. Maybe he or she may want to come over, or maybe they'll be open to being able to speak with you and, just kind of discuss a little bit about the challenges that they face. And sometimes, it can be something so simple, just like, a basic question that you ask, and the amount of years that they've put into this work that they've done, they're just like, why did we never think of that? Mm-hmm. And so, the different initiatives, the different programs that I've been a part of is just really working with the NCTSN, so working with Duke University, working with UCLA University, working with Northwestern University and the Feinberg School of Medicine, and just really connecting and working with these different individuals on, a small scale that grew into a large scale to be able to just talk and advocate, and then being able to bring other individuals in. So as I said in my previous question is that, for me, I was out of the child welfare system. Right. Mm-hmm. But I still wanted to advocate for the voices of those individuals who were going through trauma and going through things where, they weren't able to experience that normalcy. And so one thing that I do is when I get asked to come to these groups or be a part of them or kind of help build and create initiatives, I always sit back and I kind of listen and I watch and I observe, the questions that are being asked, the statements that are being put out. And so one of my things is, and I tell them this all the time, I said, in order for me to move forward, this isn't something that I want to do to just check off a box on your list. Like, I need to make sure that we are really putting in the effort in order to see what success looks like to us. And then after we've done everything that we need to do, then going back and saying, okay, what did we do wrong? What did we do great? What can we do, better the next time, we create another one of these initiatives? Or what can we do to build off this initiative that we've already created for individuals in the future? But again, also giving other individuals that opportunity. And so, I say a lot of times, when they ask me to continue to be part of these different groups, I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it. But I also want to give other individuals an opportunity. So, I've been the chair, I've been the co-chair. And when I'm on these groups for a while, I say, hey, hey, Antron, do you want to continue being a chair? Do you want to continue being a co-chair? I don't mind it, but hey, let's look at some other individuals to give them that chance, to give them that opportunity that I had. So, for me, it's all about, as we're building these initiatives and these programs, to continue opening up doors for other individuals, because I understand that I can't do it all myself. And outside of not being able to do it all myself, I know that there's going to be other individuals who are going to be able to speak and have conversations and be able to come up with ideas that even I didn't think about, because again, it's things that I didn't face, challenges that I didn't have to deal with. And so always, making sure to do that, to bring in those, new individuals, and then teaching and mentoring them to do the same thing that you don't want to, because you can easily get burnt out in this work, right? So when you feel that, you're kind of getting burnt out, or, you're kind of at your end, look for other individuals to be able to bring them into this
I'm
work.
recording.
Look for them to be able to, come in and, and do this work as well, and kind of, give some input and give some feedback, and, see how we can just always continue to progress it, as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you want to open it up to get more people involved and whole bunch of different ideas, and then try to work through it like that, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think too that especially for youth coming out of the system, it's a really good resume builder, right? For you to say, hey, I spoke at the local level, the state level, or even the national level. I spoke on Capitol Hill about XYZ. If they didn't have a job or internship, it's a good resume builder to say, hey, I worked with this coalition, or I worked with this group to build XYZ, and this is what we built. These are the challenges that we face, but this was the end result that we had, and this is what we're going to do in order to be able to move forward. And so when I talk about not just checking off a box, I'm always telling them, how are we going to measure this? I spoke about one of the first things is that what you see success as is different than what I see success as, right? So when we're measuring success, everyone has a different take, a different version of what success looks like to them. And so again, bringing in these other individuals to be able to do the same work that I've done, to do better than what I've done. And, if they start to feel tired or a little bit burnt out, then again, giving them that opportunity where they can come in and, they can say, hey, we want to bring in some other individuals as well, to be able to give them that chance, to be able to give them that opportunity, to do this same work and do more than what we've done as well.
That sounds like a plan. All right, let's hit this one. How do you secure funding and resources for communities you serve?
So I don't actually secure the funding itself. So what I do is build out programs. Who am I to say that, this group needs exactly this, or this community needs exactly this. This is what you need, right? When I'm not necessarily a part of that community. So take, for instance, like the George Floyd incident that happened, right? What I would do in a situation like that, looking at what the trauma that community may have, I will go and I will build out a program. And then once that program has been built, then hand it over to that community and let that community cater it specifically to their community. But it gives them different avenues. It gives them different ways of how to build coalition groups, how to have advocacy from, the bottom level up to the top, what that's going to look like, having a diverse group of individuals, being able to speak to what that community needs. And then from there, they're able to build it and to get those resources or get that funding by working with different parts of the coalition. So if that's working with, teachers, caseworkers, the local judges, local law enforcement, etc., and being able to say, hey, this is what we need within our community. And then from that, you do the grant writing, and once the grant writing has been done, you start the process, the initial phases of that. And then once other grantees, they see that, hey, this work that they're doing is actually really good and it's purposeful, then they can go and they can give out more and more and additional grants to what they're doing. So I'm really just kind of providing the platform or the overall basis of what they can do in that community, but allowing them to be able to come in and change it and cater it to what's best. Because again, I don't specifically know what that community needs. So who am I to come in and kind of tell them, well, this is the direction that you should be going? But again, it is also with me giving them that platform to be able to speak about what they need It's allowing other individuals to come in and have a voice, different backgrounds, different diversities, and just really speak to what's needed within that community for those resources and for that funding. And so if they're saying that, hey, you need more funding for teen pregnancy, or more funding for homelessness, or more funding for the crime, etc., that's in our area, then they're going to know more about it than I am, because I'm not specifically in their community, and I'm not necessarily going through those same difficulties, those challenges that they are.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, you take in the information of what's going on in the community, and then you build out a program specifically for the community for them to tailor it and use it the way that they need to use it, because you're
Absolutely.
not there, so you don't know all the information, but you know the framework of what it would take for them to get there, right?
Absolutely. Yep. That's
Yeah,
exactly it.
yeah, that make perfect sense to me. Right. All right, here go 19.
Okay.
Why is mentorship so important for young people, especially those who've been through hardships?
This is such a great question. Why is mentorship so difficult for those young people, young kids and teens, even some young adults, right? I think that the reason why it's important, and even more so for those who've experienced those hardships, is because that mentorship, what it really does is it provides that guidance. It provides that stability. It provides that hope, at a time when they need it most. And so when you talk about support and belief, really a mentor can offer that consistent encouragement, and they can affirm a young person's strengths, what those are, even when they may doubt themselves, right? Someone that can actually believe in them, and that can really help them to make a difference between giving up and being able to push forward. But what it also does is it opens them up to that exposure and that opportunity. And so those mentors, especially the ones that I had, they didn't just open doors by just sharing their knowledge or being able to share their network and experiences that, young people might not otherwise have access to, but really just showing up for them and, showing them what's possible beyond those current situations, those circumstances that they're dealing with. But it also teaches them those life skills and those coping mechanisms, those coping strategies. And so for those who really face trauma or instability, mentors, what they do is really create that healthy model within the decision-making process, and they're helping to really just build that resilience and problem solving. And so this can really replace, those harmful cycles that we see over and over again when we talk about like historical trauma, and it can replace those harmful cycles with positive tools for growth. And it also gives those youth a sense of belonging. So, many youth today, they've endured, so many hardships, abuse and neglect. They struggle with individuals, trying to trust individuals. And so how you talked about earlier with the one movie that you watched where the girl, felt isolated, right? And so if you have that caring mentor, that relationship, it really helps them to feel like, that they're seen, to be able to feel like they're valued and connected, which I think is critical for being able to really, help build their confidence. And so I think it's powerful for young people to have a mentor, especially those, when they're faced with that hardship, because again, it gives them that guidance, it gives them that encouragement. It gives them that belief that, when it's needed most, helping them to just continue to really build that resilience out, and being able to, gain those opportunities for new exposure, and being able to really just develop themselves and have those coping mechanisms and those different strategies. And so being able to just navigate those challenges in more healthier ways by being able to have a mentorship, being able to have someone who you feel that's, there for you and has your back, and be able to just really kind of assist and guide you, throughout your journey. And so whether that's for a long time or a short time, I mean, my mentors now, they're still my mentors. I don't talk to them necessarily every day, but I can just as easily, if I'm applying to a job, say, hey, I'm putting you down as a reference. And they're like, okay, We're fine with that. We're cool. I can apply to a number of jobs, and I know that they're going to be there, and they're going to, give me a good review to whoever that employer is. And so, just building those connections and having that, at an early start is important, because those are the ones who are always going to have your back. Those are the ones who are always going to advocate for you, but they're also the ones who are going to push you. So, when you're getting upset, sad, when you're getting down, they're going to be the ones that's there for you, that's continue to motivate you and to push you, through that challenge, through that struggle that you're having.
Mentorship speed up the process.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because a lot of times it's good to have more than one too. Because one could be good in financial literacy. Another one could be good at building a business. Another one could be spiritually, mentally, physically, right?
Yep.
So with those type of people in your mind, it's pulling you. It's really not pulling you. It's kind of like giving you the information, a pool of information to help guide your life in a better way, in a more smoother path, other than continually falling down. So like a lot of us go through life by ourselves and we try to figure it out, right? Just like it's so much information and books. As a young kid, a lot of young kids really don't like to read the information, right? That's why they say they conceal so many things in books. And a lot of people don't get the information because they don't want to pick it up to get the information out of it. There's some great information in some of these books, right?
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
So mentorship speed up the process to help you get where you're trying to go in life. And if a lot of people can get it early on, you will have less problems in your life, less hardships if you dive into the right information at a young age.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not to say that you're not going to have any of those challenges, but either one is, like you say, is going to be less, or two, you've already had that guidance to be able to, get through that challenge.
Move through it. Yep.
So, yeah.
Because like I was telling you before, when I was making bad choices, right? I wasn't looking for nobody else to correct me but my daddy. Right? If my daddy would have said, "Hey, I'll go out there and sell them drugs, man. Take your ass to school," right? I wouldn't have sold no drugs. But in my daddy case, he was like, "Well, you got this. Just give me a 50-pack. And I'm go with this." He was all for it. So it was just, then that's how a lot of us, the person that you idolize, even if they're doing the wrong thing, if they tell you to do the right thing and you love that person enough, you will change your life. You won't go down the wrong path. Is basically the example that I'm trying to make out of that situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got segment 6. Legacy and advice. If you could speak to kids in foster care today, what would be your message to them?
Oh, wow. Wow, that is a really good question. What would be my message to, or advice to youth today, if I could speak to them? One of the quotes that I use is, "A successful man is one who can lay a firm foundation with the bricks that others have thrown at them." And so first letting them know that the situation that they're in is not due to any fault of their own. Letting them know that first, that it's not their fault. Because a lot of kids, they like to blame themselves for ending up in the foster care system. Well, what could I have done, better? Like, they feel that maybe I was acting bad and that's why I had to go away from my family. But letting them know that it's not their fault because they're not adults. But also talking to them about what the path to success looks like to them at an early age. Again, going back to what do you want to be when you grow up? We're talking about being a police officer or being a lawyer or doctor, truck driver, football player or ball player, talking about that. thinking about what it is that you want to do and then outlining steps to reach that success. Understanding that you will face difficulty, that you will face challenges, and that sometimes that things will come up that are completely out of your control. So going back to me, high school football, I was a great ball player, but I didn't get the playing time I deserved. That was out of my control. So no matter how great I was in practice, the coaches were putting other people in the game over me, right? I mean, at that point, I probably should have stayed at Lake Ware and I would have, probably been an all-star. But being able to understand that you're not going to be able to control all the factors, but doing your best and doing what you can, having that dedication and that hard work to see it through. And even when you have those challenges, is really never giving up. And I know that's, so cliche and it's easier said than done, but if you actually focus and work hard at your craft and what it is that you want to do, you can achieve it. There's no linear path. So one of the things that I've taught in my business courses to students is that there's not a linear path to get to where you're going. You think that, okay, it is, I'm a kid, I'm in middle school, I'm in high school, I graduate, I get into the college or university I want to get into, then I get the job of my dreams. No, there's different things that push and pull you along the way that take you into different directions. So maybe, you have to go over here to come back here to move up one step, but you're still not where you want to be at, right? And so there's not a linear path to where you want to get to. And so understanding that you will have some challenges that you face, but just really continue to work at it and continue to work hard at it for that fact. And whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, if you believe it, man, you can manifest it. You can do great things. Like I say, I looked at a Dr. Pepper scholarship and initially I started talking myself out of it. There's millions of people who are going to apply for this. I'm not going to be selected. And then, no sooner had I said that, I said, well, why not me? Mm-hmm. Why not me? Other individuals are getting looked at just like me. So I have that chance. I have that opportunity. And what did they say? They said we weren't allowed to leave voicemails or anything, or we're not allowed to send out emails, but for you, we were going to do that. And so that just goes back to that dedication, that hard work that, put forward, that effort, prior to all of that to get to the point of where I'm at today. And so I would just say, just continue to grind, continue to, be the person who you are, remain humble, doesn't matter what individuals say about you, you know who you are as a person. And so just, continue that grind and that dedication to be a better person, to get to that point where you want to reach. And along the way, have those mentors. And, even when you've reached whatever that peak of success is, then, as you're going up to reach that peak of success, continue looking down and seeing who you can pull up with you, right, to help you get to that point of success. Because you can't do it alone, right? You need those mentors, you need those guides who are there for you, but then giving other individuals an opportunity. And so you're pulling it up at the same time. And so you look at a lot of famous people, a lot of, multimillionaires and billionaires. It's like they have all the money in the world. They don't have to work. Even take a Jeff Bezos. He doesn't have to work, but what is he doing now after he's, essentially retired from Amazon? He's doing something else now, right? Because there's always that continuation of wanting to do more and more and more and more. So if you have that mindset, of remaining humble and doing something that you love and being dedicated to it, I say do it. And if you have any, thoughts, ideas, put them to paper and start developing, what that is and what that looks like, because the greatest ideas are in the graveyard. Like you and I had a conversation about that. The greatest ideas are in the graveyard because people, they think about it and they don't go through them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
and they die with all those dreams and all those goals and ideas and businesses and
so not
songs.
Being scared. Not being scared. And one of the first things I learned in one of my business courses is taking those risks. And if you fail at something, or if you don't achieve something, okay, well, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? What can I go and fix that? Even with inventors, I always use an example of a broom, right? That is not necessarily about being better than someone, but you can take something, an idea, and you can enhance it. A broom, right? We started off brooms, then push brooms, and then what it turned into, like the Swiffer sweeper, right? And then it turned to a Swiffer sweeper with
It
with a
evolves.
mop on it and a jet on it, right? Because it's continuing to enhance what's already out there. So you can do that as well. Don't
Problem
feel like
solving.
don't feel like your idea is, too big or too little for individuals who want to climb on board. Just go out there, like I say, put pen to paper and work hard at it and put that, dedication to it. And you'll be able to really achieve those goals, achieve those dreams that you have in order to be successful.
So basically, what you would say, a plan, right? Start your plan, and no matter where you at in life. Right now, a lot of them kids have something that they already love to do, right? But somebody's telling them that it's not going to work, right? You want to be an astronaut or whatever else, and that's what you're embedded in your mind, and you really love it, so you study that every day. You can't let somebody else damper your dream because their dream is not your dream, right? Their dream is not your dream. And a lot of parents and stuff, we want to live their dream through their kids when their kids really don't even like the things that they like. Right? So it's good to come up with a plan. You already got a burning desire for something that you already like. Plan it out to the T. 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, and go at it with gas on your ass. Right? Don't let nobody tell you that it's not impossible. Doesn't matter where you at in life, start now. All right? 2 years, a year or so could change your life. Just one right decision could change your life for a lifetime.
Don't procrastinate. Even if you have to work on it a little bit at a time, just continue to move the needle until you have time to really sit down and, work on it for a while. But the more you procrastinate, someone else has that same idea that you have.
Yeah.
Right? And if they get to it first, then
you still on the table. You're still on the table because they say keep the plan. Well, say don't change the goal. It might have to change the route, right? The goal's still the same, but you might have to take different steps to get there.
And that goes back to that linear path. There's no linear path.
It could be all over the place. Yeah, but keep going. Because a lot of things, just like growing up, I loved to play basketball. I loved to write music. And when I used to sit at the table, used to be beatboxing and stuff and making the beat. It was nervous. Like you'd be really, really nervous when you sitting there in front of all those people in there. We'd be in the lunchroom. I'd be beating on the table and rapping. So I used to be real nervous doing it. But everybody was like listening to it. They were like, yeah, dang. But you don't feel like that could have been something that you good at and it comes to you easily. If it comes to you easily, it's your purpose, man. You don't gotta sit there and overthink it because we already got it. You just gotta open it. Just say you just gotta open the package, man. It's already there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, just open the package.
I like that quote. If it comes to you easily, it's already your purpose. I like that.
Yeah, it's already there. All right. The other question that we didn't put on there, I want me to ask you about the kids, man.
Oh, yeah. So one of the reasons why I'm not married and I don't have kids. I'm currently not in a relationship now. But one of the reasons why is, and I would not encourage anyone to do this, is that growing up in the foster care system, like I said, even when my mentor was telling me, hey, apply to Harvard University, there's that anxiety, there's that nervousness, there's that, being scared of what if I fail? What if I don't do well? And I know we see individuals all the time who have little to next to nothing, who, they're getting married and they're having kids and they're making it work, right? I think for me, the reason why I don't have any kids at this stage in my life and why I'm not married is because I've always wanted things to be perfect. And I realize and understand that, there's no perfect scenario no matter, what the situation is. And so a lot of what I did was putting my career first, not putting my career over the woman who I dated, but still putting my career first in the sense of I wanted to get to a place of where I felt really comfortable. And then when I got to that place, then, although, you have talked about marriage, talked about kids, raising a family, wanted to get to, a specific place. And when I got to that place, then that's when I would feel like, okay, I've achieved what I need to achieve. Let's get married. Let's move forward. With the marriage and the kids and everything. And it's just the relationship that I have been in that didn't work out. It wasn't necessarily because of those things, but I do sit back and I realize that the fact that I'm not married, the fact that I don't have any kids, that it may have been one of the factors that may have contributed to those relationships. So like for me, when I got the internship in DC and it turned into a job, and I worked up there for a while, and then I came back to Florida because I wanted to finish my degrees. I wanted to get back up to DC. And so my thing is, I'm a very honest person. And so like the girls who I would talk to or date, I would tell them right from the start, hey, look, I'm looking to move back to DC because I don't think it's fair for me to start dating a woman and then, 2, 3, 4 months down the road, oh, hey, by the way, I got a job in DC. I'm taking off. You can come if you want to, or you can stay here, right? That's not fair to them. And so I was always open and honest from the beginning and, kind of let them know that, hey, this is my overall goal is to get back up there and working in the federal government. And moving back there and working there is just taking a lot more time than I anticipated. And with that taking more time, again, wanting everything to be perfect, it's kind of like, there's a wait period. And then, there's some situations outside of even my career. There's situations and things that you deal with where the relationship kind of fizzles out, but I'm working on it. I've taken time to really just kind of work on myself. I know what it is that I want, being able to move forward, have that family, have those relationships, have kids, etc. I'm ready for it. So I know it's taken a while, but I'm definitely ready for it.
Well, don't miss your blessing, man.
Absolutely.
Don't miss your blessing, man. Because the person that you might see that might be the right one, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Don't go through your whole life chasing perfection.
Yeah.
Well, for those situations, because ain't nothing gonna be perfect,
Yeah.
right? Nothing is never perfect. And then looking at something that's a part of you, and you got the chance to be in their life and instill the values that you have in you. It's like watching yourself grow up again, right? Watching yourself grow up again, and you get the experience because it's so much. It's joy, joy, it's happiness, it's love, it's so much comes to you when you have them kids, man.
Yeah.
Kids change your whole life around. I got 12 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 7 girls and 5 boys. And there's nothing in this world that I wouldn't do for them. They help me to keep going every day. They help me to stay on a straight and narrow path.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's the best part of me. All right? That's the best part of me. Even if you get mad at them, whoop their ass, whatever else you're doing, they gonna come right back to you like I love you because they know they did wrong. All right? They never change on you. They don't. So I know probably growing up the way you did, it might make a difference in the way that like the feel towards people, like somebody caring for you and then they leaving you and then you feeling abandoned by yourself, right? And then you having to navigate this life by yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So it makes you feel a certain type of way for trusting people. So it might be an issue with trusting, but it really ain't that. It's just you haven't probably seen the right person that came to you that fulfill you the right way, right? That's probably what you.
I would say I think that's a good take on it. I have friends who grew up in the child welfare system who, they leave a bag by the door because they were so used to moving from foster home to foster home to foster home, and so I think that's part of it as well. That feeling of abandonment. It took me a while to even like get enough courage to even talk to a girl to ask her out, right? Because there's that fear of rejection. People are like, oh, there's plenty of fishes in the sea, and just go to the next one. But rejection hurts, right? So if I'm getting rejected, it's like, ooh, I feel the type of way. I'm not going to go to the next woman and try to talk to her, or the next woman. Like, I'm just going to, if she looks at me and I look at her and we strike up a conversation and it works, hey, it works. But am I going to approach her? No. You know what I mean? And so, it's taken a while to even be able to, really have the confidence and approaching women and,
Check this out.
Rejection, like it's
okay.
Out. Like that's fine.
How do you know you're gonna win if you never take the shot?
Yeah, no, that's true too.
How you know you're gonna win if you never take the shot?
Yeah, that's true too. So I'm getting better at it. I mean,
you confident though.
I've lived in Tampa for a year now, and one of the things that I have said is that I haven't, other than like with friends to birthday parties or the brunch and stuff like that, I haven't actually gotten out in Tampa. We go to concerts or shows together, but still I'm around friends, and so I was just like, I know that I need to get out and be able to mix and mingle and meet people. Maybe joining the running club that's here, or even I used to think that it was so weird for people who go out and eat by themselves, but as an adult, it's just like people do it all the time. For me, I was like, if I'm going out and I'm eating by myself, like I got to bring my laptop because I don't want to seem like I don't have a woman there to be with me, or I'm not I use it almost as if I'm having a business lunch is what I used to do back in the day. But I'm just like, you go out by yourself, you'll be okay, you'll be fine. And, you want to go to a restaurant, sit at the bar, and just lady comes along that you feel comfortable talking to, have that conversation. So I'm continuing to learn, and grow, with my age. Maybe the next conversation we have, I'll have the ring, on my hand, be married, and
just don't do that.
First and second child already.
Don't do it with anybody though.
Oh no.
You're a man. You're a man of great information, man. You gotta put another head on your shoulder.
I'm humbled by what I've gotten in the past in terms of like I've heard mothers tell me directly that I've heard fathers say that whoever you marry, you're going to make a great husband someday, and I've heard moms directly tell me that you are the type of man that I would want my daughter to marry. So, I'm humbled when I hear that. So you're right. It's just not any and everybody. Like I'm very, kind of cautious when I'm going into a relationship or when I'm talking with a young lady, before we really start to move forward with that process, just kind of, filling everything out. But I know that when it comes to, for me, I do take marriage very seriously. So I'm like, welcome to death row. If you mad, if you upset, go in the other room, cool off. We can come back out and we can have a conversation, about it later. Like, I only want to be married once, and I want to make sure that, it is the right person who I'm getting married to. So,
yeah, I've been married. Same woman, same everything, all the kids in the house. But like I said, take precaution.
Yeah.
Don't do it with anybody, and if you're serious about it, make sure y'all on the same page, because you don't want chaos down the road. And it's always good to know a person first.
Yeah,
their intentions, because if you're dealing with somebody and you can't build with them, it's not gonna work out. I always need somebody to push you to become a better person, even if you feel like you're at your greatest, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it takes just a little bit push from the right person to motivate you to turn into an amazing person, right? change your whole outlook on everything else that you got going on, just by that person, and that person is pouring into you, and you pouring into that person, and you know what I mean. You building something that's
Absolutely.
gonna last a lifetime, right?
Yes, sir.
Makes sense though, don't
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely makes sense.
it? Yeah. But but that's it. This has been an amazing episode. I'm gonna chop it up, and I'm gonna chop it up in some segments. So, and I'm gonna send you some of the clips so you can go wherever. So I gotta make sure everything is the levels and everything good, and we could do this again.
Man, like I say, I'm very humble. You know, I appreciate you reaching out to me. Appreciate being able to be a part of this interview and just kind of relate and tell my story a little bit, get it out there. I mean, I know my story's kind of like been out there in the media and stuff because I've told it so many times, but never really on a level like this. It's just telling the story and then somebody writing it and putting it in the newspaper or whatever, but just really being able to kind of get out there and just have this conversation like this is good. It feels great, it feels nice, and we just want to make sure that I wish you much success, much continued success, on what you're doing and what you're working on, being able to continue to build this and get an even larger audience than what you have now, man. Definitely big ups to you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I'm trying to figure it out, man. It's just part of life, and I wish like I say, I've been trying to catch up. Yeah. I got behind, man. I got behind chasing the wrong thing, and I'm just trying to do all the right things, man, and let God lead me through this path the best way He can. And like I say, I'm all for the ride, man, and that's.
So remember that path isn't linear,
Yeah.
It's not a linear path to get to where you're trying to reach. So
yes, sir. But I appreciate you, bro. And this has been Welcome Legacy Podcast, episode 10. I got Antron McCullough on here. Amazing guy, man.
For all my friends that used to call me that back in the day.
What that?
Megatron now.
Yeah, Megatron. yeah, Tron.
Scantron back in elementary, middle school, and then Megatron in high school and college. So yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But I appreciate you, my brother. You have an amazing day.
Same to you. Stay blessed.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right.